Is Wednesday, August 28th, 2024, and this is a meeting of the Senior Center Site Selection and Building Committee. This meeting will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting or hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting 375-414-6065 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at atm@ayer.na.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100 prior to meeting.
I want to check the meeting ID number because you said 6065. Mine says 6055.
Oh, it is, you're right, I just misspoke, 6055. That is correct. All right, so I would like to call us to order at 6:05 p.m. And I propose amending the agenda to have item 6.5, let's call it, for a presentation of the first draft of the total project cost.
Motion to make the amendment.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. All right. So thank you to Carolyn. I believe you did the July 14th minutes. Did anyone have any questions on those and any other? Did everyone have a chance to read them?
Ken read them, he said they were good.
That's what counts.
That's right. All right, so then
I think we approve the meeting minutes for the meeting of July 14th, 2024.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair says aye. Right, and then Dennis, did you say you did not have minutes for August 14th?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I think we can just table that until the next meeting. Great. So that brings us to public safety consultation, and thank you to the police and fire chief who are here with us at the table, and the rest of the fire safety folks who've come to join us for the discussion today.
Is it safe? Well, I'll give a little introduction. We're always very concerned about safety of this particular type center. As we get older, our reaction times are a little bit more limited. We would like more time when we enter and exit the site. The site has a lot. It has what we call dark sky lighting in the parking lot. It's an LED lighting system to make sure that in the evenings and in the winter time in the dark, that it's clarity of the parking lot and access to the building. We also design our parking lots to be one way in, one way out. And it takes probably 2 weeks for everybody to learn how that works. But once you understand how it works, it creates a much safer environment. It's kind of a joke amongst us older folks that we often park by braille, we bump our way in and out. Our parking spaces are designed to be 9'6" wide with double lines to make it clear for us when we park. And then in terms of access to the building, we're planning to have a generator, so it's a whole building generator, which covers both air conditioning, heating, and the kitchen operation for cooling and warming center. We don't call it emergency center because emergency centers require a lot of other aspects of the building that need to meet the requirements. But it is a center which could certainly double as a warming food center, especially as our summers get hotter and our winters get warmer. Might have very good in the winter. And also, one thing that as these are very preliminary drawings, right now it's just site plans and a floor plans. Eventually, as this building develops and it gets through town meeting with approvals, we really will address issues of egress in and out of the building. We actually, this particular use group are elderly, and often people get to the second floor with walkers or wheelchairs. And you can get up there with the elevator, which is an accessible elevator. But often when we get onto the upper floors, our ADA requirements don't give us ADA exit in terms of for safety. And any building over 3 stories or 4 stories requires to have an area of refuge and a rated stairway. We provide that in this project. Even though we're only 2 stories, we want to accommodate people who have mobility issues that can't do the stairs in case there's an emergency. So our second means of egress out of the building is a 2-hour rated stairway, which has an area for up to 2 or 3 walkers or wheelchairs. And in that spot, just for fire and police understand this, there's a call system in that area of refuge to alert anybody who's coming in during an emergency in terms of professionals, that they're alerted that there's somebody in the refuge area to be helped out of the building. And that occurs down at the main entrance with the fire alarm system that is in the building. It's actually a call directly to that room. And so anybody that's in that room can push a button and do that. The other safety thing we do in the building is that all areas where there's like a fitness facility, the bathrooms in each bathroom stall, at the urinals, at each urinal, and in the main bathroom area, there's an emergency call pole. And it's a string that goes down within 6 inches of the floor. So if you fall and you're able to reach this and pull this button, that alerts the administrative desk area with a location as to where this is. And that room has an exterior light on it that lights up and lets you know that somebody in that room is in distress. These are all things that we design into these centers for life safety. Of course, it's a fully sprinkled building, fully alarmed. The other issue about this building is we carry a separate line item for IT and security. We carry that outside of the main contract because generally that's a proprietary system that the town uses. And if we're public bidding it, it's low bidder wins, and you don't necessarily, you really want to work with somebody who manages all your security in the town. So we carry that as a separate line item. And that's the kind of thing that will involve police and fire midway into the design process to make sure that we covered that area properly. I'm not sure, there is right in this design, a fireplace, it's gas, it's enclosed as in the sitting area or lounge area and library area. There's outside areas with seating for cafe and for outside patio area. And we are carrying as an alternate outdoor pickleball courts. Very popular item. I think we did our first pickleball court about 8 years ago. Since then, everybody wants them. Not every town has the space, but fortunately our 2 sites have space for that. The other popular thing we don't carry with is bocce ball, but in terms of life safety, generator, interior life safety issues, emergency lighting, sprinkler, emergency calls, and outside lighting. That's kind of, and your questions and points go fire and police, we appreciate it. It'll get a lot more detailed for you to look at down the road. That's me, I'm done. Speak up,
I didn't know if that was just a dramatic pause or, you know.
speak up or forever hold your peace.
And since we have a very long table, if everyone can. And like speak a little bit loudly, for the sake of the length of our room.
Oh, good. Was that loud enough? You were good. I'll get louder.
It's good.
I can't hear a word squat.
Sounds good to me.
All right, oh, good. Glad somebody's listening back there. All right, go ahead, guys. Any thoughts?
I can go for sure.
Sure.
So, Tim Johnson, Fire Chief, also with me is, Deputy Chief Januszkiewicz, along with, Lieutenant Golden, who's a fire prevention officer. So thanks for inviting us down. Are we able to, view it, understanding that it's early on in the process? Either site would be okay, fire department wise, whichever one you move forward. A couple things, like the parking looks great, but we can make sure we can provide you with a swept turn analysis.
Yeah, we will do that.
Our longest wheelbase apparatus.
Yeah.
We can do that to make sure we can negotiate, the parking lot and stuff like that.
We also typically do mountable curbs around corners and so.
Okay, yep, yes.
Not only for you guys, but for us older
Yeah.
drivers, don't want to wreck our tires.
No, understand as this evolves, like the fire protection systems, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
that's all gonna be there. We'll be able to be there through that process. We understand this code to follow, we'll just make sure that we hit all those things. Some of the things that come up too, whether there's a BDA meeting, there's
Yeah.
an amplifier, we'll make sure our radios are gonna work.
We ask you to do a test.
Yep, okay, certainly as things evolve, depending on location, whether we have to hide your locations and stuff, and we can work in conjunction with the DPW with that. Then as you already mentioned, I think it's a great alternative to, like, we use the police department, I guess you call it the rec room out there, the room inside the train community room, as a heating and cooling station. I think this would be a great alternative. Where there's, if it's a longer duration, there's certainly a kitchen they can use if they need it. People with functional needs can get in and out with these, the seniors, so that's just some of the notes that I hit, unless you guys in the back, had anything else to add, Jeremy, about.
No, you pretty much covered. I do have a quick question on the whole house generator though. Is that gonna be include the elevator?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of initial things from the fire side, I guess.
Your rated stairwell, is it the one that's labeled 122?
It's,
I think so.
it's the one that's
It's the one over in the, it's along the exterior wall.
backside.
Yeah, it's on the road.
Is there any,
Yeah,
well, other
one
question
thing,
on
yeah.
that rated stairwell, is there any like a smoke control system in that as well? For that rated stairway?
No, it's 2-hour rated with B-labeled doors that have self-closing. We don't normally evacuate those rooms. We just did a hotel recently, it's 10 stories, we've got massive ventilation systems.
I just wondered if it's already required, because it is an area of refuge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a code requirement, but in fact, area of refuge is not even required, but we do it because who we are. Yeah, good point, though.
I'll go next. I just have a couple of things. Appreciate it. In general, I think both sites are very doable from, on our end. Just the one minor concern, just with the turn off onto Groton Harvard Road from Washington. It's a very short span from exit from the parking lot to that turn. So right there's a stop sign. For the traffic coming onto Washington, and then the cars coming down are free flowing and taking a right. So I just like to.
One thing, you're absolutely right there. In fact, I think we had looked at offsetting that driveway a little bit farther over. Well, a couple of things. One is, we would probably, when we get deeper into this, do a little traffic review and decide whether we might want to have some kind of warning light that's there that flashes.
Yeah,
it's
and then,
necessary.
and that's that whole area is on a grade.
Yeah.
Coming down, so it's all sloping towards Groton Harvard.
We do some timing because us older folks need about 20 to 35 seconds more to make a decision to make a left-hand turn into the sites. That's why we have turning in away from everything, because that's the most dangerous. pulling out, you have time to sit there and wait, not be nervous about cars coming at you. But we've looked at that, I think we did one design a little bit earlier, and when our engineers get involved, we'll look at that time frame from the stop sign.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, but it's, you know, I think they're both, you know, both through the plans, which is one of the concerns that I had, just the distance between turning into a kind of a tri-road area. Bishop Road, you know, just that plan over there, what I noticed on there is that's a flat you know, stretch. There's, I don't think any grade issues there when moving up or down, entering or exiting. And the traffic tends to be rather slower there on the Bishop Road when it's open. On both sides, just one of the things, and I know we're early on and it may be in further development, is any thought to bollards on some of the walkways?
Oh, we like bollards, we have,
Okay.
right now, our curbing as you walk, that's a really good point. The curbing in front where you come into the building, it's all flush.
Yeah,
And,
I saw that.
and we set the bollards at about, because it's at an angle, they're about 6 feet apart. They're 250-pound bollards on a steel post, because people do visit those things. In fact, we have one center where we have an elder who went over the 6-inch curve over a 5-foot sidewalk through 6 feet of vegetation into the multi-purpose.
Yeah.
So we try, now what we do is we actually have bollards for our handicap signs that are against the building. They're different than the big ones we put in front of the building. Yeah, and they're decorative, so they look nice.
Yeah, and I'd say, you know, if, you know, when you're looking to place those, you know, we have some floor, it looks like some floor to ceiling window areas. I mean, those would be some
Yeah.
prime areas that have those considered. Glad there's a part of it. And then the only other thing that I just wanted to point out on the Bishop Road one, and it's not on this map, and then maybe you can help kind of visualize.
Yeah,
You want to talk about that?
sure, so, I don't really have a good map. But if you're looking at the Bishop Road map and you look kind of to the bottom left, which is southwest. Out in that area, is our sludge landfill, and next to that is the police have a firing range. And so that is used in.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
It's a long way.
yeah, it's probably.
Yeah,
Quarter of a mile.
it's probably at least a quarter mile.
I just wanted to
probably
bring that up just
half.
in case nobody knew that was out there. It's a.
Because you'll be here,
Probably the
right?
last
Here.
year, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you would, if you're in the building, I don't think you'd hear it, but maybe outside of it, because it would possibly come back that direction, the sound, but.
It's massive, it's a sound with the pickleball.
That's your sound. But yeah, so that.
It's not screaming at pickleball.
Yeah.
It depends on what they're shooting.
Yeah, really.
Dr. Trust, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, do you mean it's like further back towards the,
Way back.
Yeah, so if you're holding this, it's like over here.
over there?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's pretty far off this map.
How often is it used?
So it's used, we do training, twice a year. Spring and fall, and then, for new employees, that they have to get initially called on. So the major ruckus is twice a year.
For several days?
Usually
Like the
it's,
4th of July.
it could be, we try to get our officers through in, you know, a week's time frame, so it's, you know, but then it's just going out there.
Of course, you don't shoot lead, you know.
What's that?
You don't shoot lead.
BB guns.
No high power. But that was the only thing I just wanted to point out.
Good point.
It's there,
Okay.
and, did go out, when you go,
Yeah.
You can't hear it, and just wanted to make, you know, they could build it down there and be like, what's that sound? But we did that, it's good.
Good, thank you. Good, and this is really to help introduce you both into all of you and to where we're going with this.
So, Chief, if I could just ask, and I understand it's really early in the process, but one of the things that has come up is safety concerns in the parking lot. And how would video monitoring, either in real time or delay, in terms of monitoring the parking lot to ensure that, you know, at the end of the day, everybody who was supposed to have left has left? So that, would the video feed go to the police department, or would you be?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the answer could be it could. It depends on what you're looking for, you know, what we're trying to go. That's usually something that's kind of really further down in this process, but. We, just like we do the parks here, anybody, you know, that lives in the residence sees us. We, you know, we drive through here all the time to check on things, but, you know, video feed is much better. To be actively monitoring it, I'm not sure if that's, you know, that's feasible. At this point, I mean, we do have access to other camera sites in the town, and then we use them as reactionary, like, all right, what happened? We can go back and kind of see.
Yeah, if you hit somebody's car, we'll know who you were. We often do not provide video in the parking lot. In fact, I don't think we have, but we did have a town, I think it might have been Wellesley, who added video. Just more, not because of our elders, but they don't want kids causing havoc. And that was more for, do we have a problem with youth?
Sure. And it's just to kind of couple on that, doesn't mean it's a no, it's just something we haven't done. And I think to monitor, say like, you know, our station has many cameras, to have a system like that to monitor would probably be, we'd probably have to hire a couple other people. But I think if we, you know, if it comes down to it, geez, we'd really like to monitor an exterior camera for the parking lot, that's probably something we can look at and have a, you know, a static monitor, you know, for that.
And I know it is further down the road than we are now. I would be curious to look into that to see the options. I professionally have had experience with falls in the parking lot where it was difficult to detect for quite some time that there was a person in need of assistance. With a simple
You could do
camera
internal.
would have, yeah.
Within
And
your-
so, yeah, so I
Yeah.
wonder, there might be a lot of different ways. It might not need to be police monitored, but to set that up. Yeah.
Well, I caught a bear in my backyard yesterday,
Nice.
late at night, and I yelled at him and he ran away. Because he could talk through this.
Oh,
Speaker.
nice.
And one last thing about the pickleball.
Yeah.
I do know there's sound concerns from here and the other places, so just, I don't know if that's play into anything. You hear those news stories where pickleball is taking over. Absolutely.
All right.
Neighbor is a cemetery over on Bishop Road, so.
It's a good.
As a representative of St. Mary's, I will guarantee you, you will have no complaints from the residents there.
That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And actually, we also have, online, we have Chuck Schultz, who's the facilities, director for the town of Ayer as well. Chuck, did you want to add anything in at this point?
Nothing for me to add at this point. It's pretty early on in the stages for any input. I do appreciate the gentleman when he said, keeping proprietary equipment out of the building. That's awesome. And when we're further along, I'm happy to discuss equipment and stuff down the road.
Yeah, I might comment on that, that we do have an exterior storage area adjacent to the entrance for sand or shovel. And because it's a 2-hour rated ventilated space, you could also have a small snow blower in there, if you, or an electric snow blower, if you will. Because we found in the past, many years ago, the entrance, vestibule became a storage area for all that stuff. That's a hazard for older folks coming in and out. And we actually use that area for interior waiting for on a bench in case it's inclement weather for somebody to pick you up. We also have an exterior storage adjacent to the rear patio area to putting away furniture. And we have our service area, just so you all know, is it's separate from the front entrance. Where if you have Meals on Wheels or you're getting deliveries, we keep that separate. We highly recommend that the center uses, the very large 300 gallon containers rather than dumpsters. Dumpsters are a great place for raccoons and bears. And dumpsters usually have an enclosure, and within about 2 years of that, the enclosure gets beaten up by. And we find these things that have the arms and you pick them up, and you can seal the top of them. So trash storage is gonna come up. We'll work with you and the town and facilities up there on the screen. But those are issues that I'm sure will come up as we go down the road.
Does anyone on the committee, anyone else in the committee have questions for public safety while they're here?
Snow removal. You're not volunteering to help you out or the state to come jump in? Ah,
Sure.
we got 5 tons. You're big ones.
There you go. All right, if there's nothing else, then we can let you guys get on with your evening. Thank you so much for. You're welcome to stay if you want, but
It's a lot of fun.
yeah.
You enjoy it.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure this will be an ongoing conversation as we progress through the various stages.
Question. Katie, can I ask a question? Bob Gardner.
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, how much will it cost to run the sewer down to Bishop Road? And what will the resulting cost be for the senior citizen place, the new senior citizen place?
We're working on it. Right now.
Yeah, are we gonna talk about that in a little bit on
Yeah.
the update on utility costs?
That's the next item on the agenda,
12.15.
All right,
is to update the utility cost at both sites, Bobby.
thank
All
you.
right.
Okay.
I didn't hear from the beginning.
So, actually, next up that we have, an update on the, I wanted to provide an update on the school committee and then any updates on the utility costs, before we get to that, larger discussion about, where we are on a site recommendation, because that is ultimately our charge as this committee to recommend a site, and then go into the building process. So, let's see, Ken and I presented to the school committee last week. And we had the full committee there. We had had an initial meeting or two with an individual member, but this was the first time we had met with the whole committee. Mr. Pombrian, town manager, was with us, as was a member of the select board, both in show of support for the project. We presented to them the community presentation I've given to date, kind of the overview of where we've been, you know, how we've funded what we've got, where we are in the sites and the floor plans thus far, and then kind of went over what the next steps would be if, and asked for their support. I would say it went okay. I think they were largely in support of the idea of a senior center. Each one of them had reservations about the placement on their property. In terms of wanting to keep flexibility and openness of their assets for the school district. Some of them, it was the first they were hearing of this, others, they had, you know, like I said, heard the placement a little bit more adjacent to the practice field. So I'm trying to think how to summarize it. I don't think there were hard no's. I don't also think there were any, yes, this looks like a great idea.
And you were there as well. How would you summarize that?
Well, I would summarize it as saying it was a good opportunity to get out and make a presentation to a committee, a group. I thought Katie did a nice job. I followed up with a few follow-up things and whatnot. In general, I would say they were lukewarm as a response. The one thing that was surprising to me as well as with Katie was we thought it was gonna be a little bit heat up for us when we went in. And it really didn't appear that way. So there were some people on the committee that kind of knew where the location was, but I would say a majority of them are used to coming into the school property from Washington Street, and that particular approach is the one they're familiar with. So down the street to the end of that corner was an area that they were not familiar with at all. Maybe didn't realize how far their land went or whatever. The reason I say that is because some asked, where's the tennis courts? Others asked, where's the practice field?
Yeah. It's hard to read a plan.
So there was, what came out of it was that their willingness for us to stake the property and do a site walk, which we may or may not get to after tonight,
The property is staked.
right?
Thank you, Matt. for
So they
doing
did
that.
agree that they, in the future, they'd be willing to do a site walk, but
Yes.
I'm not sure.
So I did send them some additional imagery, and thank you, Ken, for putting together, he kind of melded a Google Maps view, a satellite view with the buildings to try and make it a little, with our proposed layout, to try and make it a little bit easier to recognize exactly the piece that we're on. I did forward that to the admin for the school committee. She said she would forward it on and let me know if anyone was interested in a site visit or had any questions. So, haven't heard anything back yet, but
So do we have any idea on a timeline of when they would make a decision?
well, I think no is the short answer, because for some of them, it, like I said, it really wasn't teed up in the way that we were sort of hoping that it would have been. So I think it would have to come back up at their next meeting if they wanted it to. For further discussion.
When is their next meeting?
They have one scheduled in the middle of September. They seemed open in the meeting to doing a site walk with us, but I don't think that they have another meeting scheduled until the middle of September.
When is their lease expiring? And when does the town have to go back into negotiations? We might be able to avoid all of this if the lease is only another
It's
year
5
out,
years,
and
5
then
years
we come
left,
back in
5
and
or
say,
6.
well, the lease is only gonna be for this, and the town's taking this back. And you can circumvent the school board,
You know, I believe there's,
It is a lease though. That's the
right? So
Yeah, I
we can,
think
we could
there's
always say,
something here.
the school board did.
it's a question worth following up on. It's 5 years. I think longer term from that moment till when we go to town meeting, I think it's a better idea for it to be collaborative, than not.
Not a bad idea, just to hang it out there, that's all.
I mean, if
Yeah.
the lease
Because
is up
down the
next
road,
year or whatever.
Even
right.
if it's 5 years out, I do a lot of leasing stuff. There's lots, it's like getting a new football player on your team, you gotta negotiate with everybody. So,
There was a lot of hesitancy that it would have been, it's a ways to go with them. I was
Yeah.
the way I would describe it.
And to use a specific example, one of the members said, we just had a similar situation recently where the town of Shirley wanted to take a piece of the land at the middle school property, I guess, in order to build senior housing. And we told them no, because we need our
It
land.
was Devon's asking,
Oh, it was Devon's
Devon's
asking
was
for it,
asking,
Devon's
sure.
asking for it, sorry.
land that they
And-
used to have, they
Right.
gave to Shul.
Right, but she said, and we
Yeah,
said no to
we
them.
give it to them.
So
Yeah.
this would be basically the same thing, but for you guys, so, and that did not
was
leave.
not the way it went, I think that got voted down, it was only like 3 votes.
Yeah,
They
they
made it
voted down
sure.
at town meeting.
Town meeting got
Sure.
voted, the town people
Town
voted it down,
Town
exactly. They
Okay.
didn't want
But
that.
they used it as an example.
Well, so, but just as a parallel though, this process to use, to build here at Broughton Harvard Road, the school committee would need to approve it as, they need to vote to determine this piece of land surplus. then the select board would need to as well. And then just a town of Ayer, town meeting would need to affirm it, so you really could be in the same position where even if the school committee,
That's,
that's
the full school committee, including the Shirley representatives.
correct, it's the full school committee, but it is a town of Ayer town meeting vote.
Oh, okay. I understood it to be only the members of the town of Ayer on the school committee, but I could be wrong, I could be wrong. I thought
I
it was
can
represented.
follow up,
So
and see.
did you walk them through the legal administrative process, as we understand it, that is, we would be able to accomplish this well.
No,
With or without?
So they don't understand how that process would unfold over time.
I think
We told them the basic steps,
Yeah,
where
And did they
as I
push-
just said, that this would be how that would go.
and what's
Ask
the
for
pushback on that?
We would ask for your endorsement of putting the senior center here. Your endorsement would be official by your voting this piece of part of your parcel surplus. It would be followed by the select board, who would likely follow the recommendation that this board makes. And then it would go for affirmation. So they did hear that part in great detail.
I'm pretty sure I asked them that very night to support it right now almost.
Right,
But they
yes.
weren't really,
No,
it was a little. It was disconcerting that they weren't ready for us, we just thought they would be, I guess that was a mistake on our part.
Well, I'm a little surprised to hear that they were surprised. But their timeline might be substantially
Oh,
different
it's
from our
totally,
time.
totally different,
I mean, they may be,
totally different.
they may be looking at an entirely different calendar from what we're looking at trying to do. So,
and they did ask what our timeline was, and I said, well, we are meeting on the 28th, but I'm understanding now as we're here that you guys some of you are hearing about this for the first time, so I understand if you're not able to vote on that. And we may or may not vote on 28th, so,
We pretty much used this politics on the board, the same one we're looking at right now. And demonstrated, the piece of land we're talking about, it was a good, it's a good presentation, there wasn't much misunderstanding, it just the type of issue that they would need to contemplate further, I guess is a better way to think about it.
right.
Do you think that, I mean, this really kind of messes up in terms of our timeline, but do you think they'd be more inclined to approve it if we were down in the old site, which was along, Groton Harvard Road?
No,
No, I think that one of the members we had met with individually said, oh, I see this has moved, like they acknowledged that. But I think the concern was more globally, is there a possibility that we would want this for the field? There's a
Just don't
field
know.
expansion, another school, another school doesn't fit down there, but just a more global worry about.
It's mine and I don't wanna give it up.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I would say and I'm an outsider here, so I'm not gonna get into the politics of it. But there still is quite a bit of, there's two pretty large parcels that we've gone almost as far away as you can from where they are. And in fact, we've gone into the retainage pond.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I have all this stuff.
It's once you give them the land, it's hard to take it back. Yeah, I know, I've seen that.
well, from their perspective, I would suspect that it would be just kind of for each individual member of the school committee, especially the Shirley members of the school committee, to kind of give up the authority, give up that level of control. I think that to some extent, they probably feel like they have some level of control over this entity. And are they willing to surrender that control to outsiders, non-school
It's
affiliated?
under lease though, isn't it?
It is, and it's my understanding that at the end of the day, we in some sense win the legal argument.
Yeah.
But we could win the legal argument and lose the political argument and lose the cohesiveness of the town support. even though
Very
we are.
important. That's extremely important.
Well, so we may be winning you win the battle, but you lose the war.
Yeah, I think there's a lesson here too for all of us, certainly your committee and all the work you've been doing in getting this presentation together, how important it is to. I don't want to use a word statement, but you have to soften up the opposition by getting them on board and getting understanding where we're going ahead of time. That's really true to our town citizens, to start letting them know that this is heading in this direction. And let's get your input, talk to us, like we have right here on our screen. We have a good group, we have a larger group today here. But we have to start doing some PR work, if you will.
We might have wanted to do that 3 or 4 months ago if we knew this was gonna happen. We should have probably talked to them. They're the ones, it's their land under their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
We might have wanted to talk to them before we do all these elaborate designs and talk about Brown Harbor Road. If we have to wait till the end of September and they say no. So they gotta find a lease or whatever. We have another site. So maybe we kind of lean off that other site, Groton Harbor Road, and we move on to Bishop Road.
We're gonna move.
I think we should.
Yeah, well,
That's my vote right now.
let's get the numbers together.
I think you guys, we don't know that committee at all, we got Shirley involved, I mean, I just think we should, because they're part of the schools committee, I think we just.
I think the important thing is that we had a good meeting, and as I said, it was a good presentation, and they're on board with the concept, and they would definitely support a senior center.
Right.
The other thing that's good about it is that in our task as this group, is we have to take these steps to get to our solution.
Mhm.
So in any event, this was one of 2 pieces that were left that we had to look at closely.
Mhm.
We even mentioned to them that we were fortunate enough to do the testing out there, and the testing was good. And
Yeah,
they
I
had,
was surprised at
yeah,
that.
they had done previous testing and they'd given us the plans about other testing that they had done, and, it was done with a gentleman from the DPW at the time. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that we've gone through the steps. We took the steps we needed to do. We're shaking it out. Keep moving. That's all I can do.
We have been talking to the school department for several months, haven't we?
Well, so I would say the town manager has spoken to the superintendent on multiple occasions about the project. From that level, it is not at all a surprise. And then, we had a meeting with the superintendent. Let's see, that was Dan, you and I were there, and
Yeah, a couple months ago.
several months ago.
Yeah, because we,
So,
that was kind of when we first learned what's the process for the disposition of the land.
Right.
Oh, you have to go through the school committee. So that's when we approached Dr. Renda and started that.
right, so it's all of the levels, and I agree with what you're saying, you have to involve the various levels of folks as you go along the process. So the school committee is certainly not the last stop along that, but that was the next progression of that involvement.
He doesn't have intermediate meetings with them, doesn't talk to them.
I presume he does,
It
yeah,
sounded like they weren't totally aware of.
that,
I don't know, I wasn't there, so I.
There was even a mention of the fact that there's, I think, even a subset, maybe called the school building committee. That they mentioned, or another subset of the school committee that may be involved with, when they look at long-term planning, they ask another group to get involved, something like that. So there was a number of different levels, maybe that were even beyond just the school committee itself.
Oh, they have
There's a separate,
somebody other than on the school committee.
right, the school committee exists, but the sub to the school committee, there might be a building committee or a building advisory committee or something like that. So they mentioned that, so they would have to go reach out to them. Long-term planning is complicated.
right,
Shouldn't you reach out to them?
so I get, yeah, and as we discover more layers, then, we could choose as a committee. Whether we want to go down that road and pursue those additional layers, or whether, like Jim said that we wanna
Just
you know,
move to,
move forward with it if it doesn't.
But Shirley doesn't have a vote on this, right? It's
The sh-
it's the air group. votes on it.
So the Shirley representatives on the, and I'm gonna clarify this, but
Yeah.
my understanding was that the Shirley representatives on the school committee do have a vote on that, and I
Okay.
believe it's 3 and 3, right? 3 representatives from each,
Yeah.
and they
Really?
don't,
No, that's not easy.
Don't you wanna need, don't you want an odd
You want an odd
and they
number.
don't
No,
do,
it's more.
it's more
six
than,
People was around the table like this.
okay,
Over there.
all right, but they don't do weighted voting right now. So everybody has, it's not proportionate based on enrollment, it's each school committee member has an individual vote, so,
That's what it is.
so. I guess that's the question doesn't have to be answered in this moment, you can think about it and you
5
can,
minutes from now.
in 5 minutes from now.
after we get the update on utility
Consider, right,
costs.
whether we want to, because I foresee a situation where we either need to make a plan to really jump in and educate and advocate and all of that, or we don't. So, all right, so in terms of the utility costs, Tim, do we want to give an update sort of on just that alternate conversation or what potential steps?
Sure. Yeah, so Dan from the DPW, so. It was a couple weeks ago, I was working with a National Grid distribution design engineer on the West Main Street Bridge project. And so I brought up the senior center project over on Bishop Road and that site, just to pick his brain. And I said, you know, we're trying to figure the cost here. I met with a electrical engineer from Ty and Bond, and he told me to conservative carry $1 million. And he says, post-COVID, he's seeing anything from 2 times to 4 times what he normally used to estimate. And so I explained the whole scope to him. You know, he said, we'll require these many poles, this is the type of service you'd need, 3-phase power, et cetera, you know, just ballpark anecdotal talking. He said he didn't see it being more than in the low hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring power to the site. So the next step there, so I mean, that's good news. That's a
Now,
distribution
can
engineer.
I ask, low hundreds of thousands, is it 100,000, 200,000?
I would say like 300 or 400. Yeah,
3 to 4.
say something, so around there. So the next step, you know, to get, and rather than just a conversation I had off the cuff with a design engineer would be to, you know, put together a work request.
Oh.
Through National Grid and work with him.
Oh, I should ask them to do that, right?
I don't think we've moved forward.
Oh.
Does that move forward? I don't think it's moved forward all the way to request. But that would be the next step, and then I have this guy's contact info, so I could tell him, hey, here's the work request number, can you take this one, and then, you know, try to expedite the work request, and he knows exactly what we're trying to do, we're not doing a formal project at this point, it's just, hey, we need to get it across here. So, so that's briefly the update on the electrical, so whether the overhead, I'd say that's good news. He did say that, you know, that cost was inclusive of everything, transformer, poles, wiring, et cetera, that's what he typically would see.
They throw a generator for us?
Yeah. That's briefly.
Well, that's
pleasantly
surprising.
I think, so are you gonna be the individual that reaches out to this gentleman
I can be.
formally, or are we asking someone else?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys want, because I was thinking if you had your electrical engineer, but
We don't get them involved until we get into final design.
3 and 3 for sure.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're agreeing that you're gonna do that?
yeah, I can do that.
Now, if there's a cost involved, we have a budget, so there's no apprehension if they have design fees and whatnot. If they come back and say it's 10,000, we're just gonna spend the 10,000.
Well, then, yeah, I'd bring that back to the committee, but yeah, I guess that would be decided at that time. I mean, I think if I can get this to the engineer I talked to, he might be able to put something together quicker for, you know, we're not looking for a full-blown design at this point. It'll be, you know, just let's get this conceptual, get cost. I think, but
Yeah, we need something that adds to the numbers that we put together. And that's what I think. Compromise to other ones that you want to talk about.
So my other question about that is, timing, you know, being part of the energy sector. I see how long it's been taking to connect, you know, simple things like, you know, solar panels and, you know, and so my question is, can we get a timeline for when they can do that? How long would it take them?
Extremely important point, because I can tell you right now, we have jobs that are 95% complete with no power. Because we can't get National Grid to show up. And those are jobs that have gone on for 16 months without National Grid showing up. So it's it is critical, because what you're talking about is a serious expansion down the road. What is it, half a mile or something?
It's
Couple
thousand.
Almost.
Yeah, about a half a mile. And we have a hard time getting National Grid to show up with a transformer. So you know, it's in your discussions, it would be great to say, you know, right now it's still hypothetical, but we're talking about, if we get through town meeting, we're talking about wanting you to start this as soon as approvals are done, because it's gonna take us 6 months or so to get the drawings together, another 2 months to bid it. And we want National Grid coming along the road there. So that's one of, and I know you're right, it takes a while to tee that up for them. And I know that we've also had a real problem, even post-COVID, of getting transformers from anywhere. You know, it's just really been
Yeah, it's really a supply chain issue for the.
still is. In fact, I was, I hate to admit it, I was sitting in a bar one night for dinner, and the guy next to me ran a warehouse for National Grid in Andover, Mass, I think, or North Andover, saying, we don't have any transformers now, and we've got everybody screaming for them. And this was 4 weeks ago. So it still is a.
So,
issue for us, I think.
so we would want, if Bishop Road is the selection, and again, if Bishop Road is the selection, then we would want to try to ensure that as soon as that becomes clear and the town meeting vote is held, everything is teed up to tell National Grid, go,
I don't agree with that. I want to do it right now.
do it right now.
Yes.
But don't we want
It's
to
an
agree on?
advantage for National Grid if they're willing to work with us to get that power down that street.
So,
We have to make a different case.
so would a vote of the committee be necessary to allocate sufficient funds if required? Do we want to do that?
Yeah.
Right, I think,
And again, I have no idea what that number might, I don't know if that's 10,000 or 40,000, I mean, I have no idea what that number might be. But
You're gonna be paying for the engineering. You're not gonna pay for the installation. If they charge you for the design, that's what you have to get over first. You have to get into the queue,
Yeah.
into the system for an engineer.
Yeah,
to
because back charge is pretty
assign to
big.
do the design.
Yeah.
And then they'll charge you, I don't know, 10, 15, 20,000.
Yeah.
Designs. So you've got the design, but you haven't given them the order yet, but if you're willing to pay for the design, they'll probably go ahead and do it.
Yeah, Park Street, we had a grant and National Grid had the design underground the electric, it was 15 million. So you're probably looking at something like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do we want to approve this expenditure of those funds, or do we need to approve?
so I,
We can do this on our authority?
so we're back to that little bit of a chicken and an egg thing, so I
Yeah.
think what we wanna do is, now that we have the utility cost update, the school committee, now I think we need to have a broader discussion about, are we ready to choose a site? And are we choosing a site? And then we would have action items.
We have an
related.
answer.
I don't think we're.
Yeah.
We're
utility
not
yet.
through with the utility.
We got a lot of utilities to go off. Septic,
We have others.
gas.
Water. sewer.
Yeah.
No, I know, I guess that's what I'm saying, is I think we wouldn't know whether the action item was related to the school committee or the action item was related to authorizing spending until we have finished that discussion. So sorry, that's.
Yeah.
You ready?
You want, I'll just give a quick update for the audience. I know Bob Gardner, you had asked for the cost for sewer. So back in July, I did produce a memo for the committee for the costs for wastewater and water. And we were carrying for wastewater, we were gonna do septic. We did look at gravity to sewer, it's too far and costly. So septic would be around $90,000 in carrying. And for water, I did a design cost for that, and we're looking at around $500,000 to bring it out there at a minimum. So there's your sewer and water. Gas is also distant, 1,600 to 2,000 feet away, and so we factored in not bringing gas to the site.
But that would add to the base cost of this.
Of the total
Because
project
The
cost.
septic would go on to this number, and water would be town cost, or we added.
It would be
this
part of it.
number, but
Yeah.
it would be, we wouldn't design the water, I think the town would do, DPW design the water.
Yeah.
With time.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
We don't do long distance utilities,
yeah, we could pull, yeah, We
time
could
bond,
do
that's their
that.
specialty,
it's not.
you don't wanna pay us to do that. And then, for gas though, propane then would be, and we'd probably have
Yeah.
1,000 tanks, 1,000 gallon tanks or something.
One other thing I didn't mention earlier with the overhead is that, and Ken sort of alluded to it, is it does benefit National Grid to extend their utility out, because potentially there could be future tie-ins. Or, any usage they had, if they had solar or something tied in, but anyways, so there's sometimes are rebates for that. So I'm trying to find out if there'd be any rebates.
Yeah.
As part of
That's
our project to extend it, kick back the money to you. In order for that extension.
So I'm gonna make a note of that.
Can I clarify, what you just said, Mr. Catlin?
Yes, ma'am.
You had said, there would be added cost to the project of propane. Is that what,
Yes.
is that what we're talking
Yeah.
about? Since there was no gas.
Well, it depends who your supplier is. Some suppliers we normally would like to see the tanks, they're underground tanks, is what we recommend. And if you go underground tanks, those are in for the long term, they're especially designed for that. Generally, your supplier doesn't do that. We usually end up with 2 or 3 tanks. But your supplier may help subsidize that if they get a contract. So propane is supplied by an independent supplier, unlike natural gas. You pay whoever your gas company, Columbia Gas or whoever. Okay.
So can we get some sort of estimate of that?
Yeah, I'll look into that.
So just to clarify
All I
that,
do is go over and talk to the lawyer.
John, I'll call, there's a local company here in town, Lord, very good friends of mine. I can take it off your plate and I can call them tomorrow, get a rough number.
Installing 2.
Two tanks.
And I'm gonna ask I'll ask a rule of thumb from my engineer for this building, but probably 2 1,000 gallon tanks. Since my house has a 1,000 gallon tank, and I chug through that pretty quickly. Unfortunately. And
Bobby? Did you hear the response regarding water and sewer?
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I did.
all right, I just wanted to make sure we answered the
I'm looking
question.
at you over here.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll say you from here.
Sorry I didn't get dressed up.
No, this is,
Yeah,
Picture the robot.
The owl,
Hey.
what's his name?
go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any ongoing accounting about how much money we have left from the funds that we've been given? Both from the grant that Alan got and the ones we got from the, selectmen for this project?
so that totaled about 3, and that's a good, I will put together an official budget report for the next meeting, but spitballing it was about $375,000. And the only bills we have paid out thus far have been, see, about 45,000. So,
Does that include the fees or?
yeah, we're paying a lot.
I'm honestly not charging enough, but that's.
Appreciate that. Okay, yeah, because
Keep
what
it
we're
up, yeah.
saying, can we use our
Get a
money
chance to read
Coming
real
to
you know,
contract.
to guarantee something with that?
The rates is
We
coming.
Need to know how much money we
The
have.
next
Right.
contract.
Real contract.
So, the contract with Catlin is for 100,000. And we have the, I believe it's it's either 365 or 375, and I will bring that number, but that's all we had paid out is for this, as we're progressing along on the contract. For Catlin. So I think there's plenty of funds to do that with.
Absolutely.
We all set with Dan's update?
Yeah, that's right, and
Yeah,
I
that's
just want to
anyone else?
clarify that. When we get to the cost estimate, we can have it more detail, but to clarify, it includes the normal. And then we talked about the utilities at Bishop Road being above and beyond that, so. Yeah, and that ties up utility. So that brings us to the further broader discussion of the sites and whether we're ready to make a recommendation. So at our last meeting, you know, I went around to everybody and said, do you have the information you need to make a recommendation, to take that vote? And everyone said they did. And now we have some additional information based on the school committee, based on the cost, and based on utilities updates. So that's why I wanted to clarify that this cost estimate, we can go into the cost estimate in more detail in a moment. But that cost estimate is the same for both sites, aside from the greater utility costs at Bishop Road, which we're not sure how much greater they are. We just know there's some greater.
Approximately, the numbers I've heard today, about 990,000,
So that's.
give or take, you know, because it's very preliminary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm not counting, I do believe that our propane should not ultimately, shouldn't cost us anything. There might be some issues about who owns the tanks underground, probably belong to the town, and maybe they're $10,000, but it's not a big number. The big number is water. And to be fair about it, utilities sound like you're gonna get some kind of rebate. You know, they may wanna run the line down the street at their cost, which would be huge for us. If that's possible.
I have one thing just to follow up on. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. The planning board, including myself, is meeting at the substation. At the corner of Bishop Road with National Grid. Day before us with a proposal to upgrade that substation. And basically, that's amazingly enough, 1932 that thing was built. It's almost 100 years old. It's the oldest substation, I guess, in town. So they're doing a pretty big overhaul. We saw drawings.
Yeah.
So that's another opportunity for me to try to find out the right engineer, unless you want to join us there tomorrow. I'm not sure, but it's 8 o'clock.
I have another conflict, but what, yeah, if you can,
So
I'll talk.
it's just gonna give us another chance to talk to somebody. There is they do, you know how it goes. There's branches going in every direction. There is a branch that goes to Bishop. And then it turns back towards Park Street.
Yeah,
So there are already two that the section where it crosses the tracks, it just doesn't, it goes in the other direction as they loop around the substation. So we'll try to get another name in anything we can to determine. And then they are represented by, who's their engineer? BSC, I think is the engineer for that.
yeah,
Good outfit.
Real good outfit. So they do all the National Grid's work, BSC, pretty much all these expansions. It's a huge engineering.
I can't afford that.
So we'll have a chance to talk to BSC or the chance to see who's there from National Grid, the chit chat, some, maybe get some more. So
Yeah.
Good to you.
and now that you think of it, I remember when we met with Devon's.
Yep.
They talked about that triangle piece, they talked about.
There's another piece
potentially
there that's going on.
Using that for some kind of electrical upgrade.
Yeah.
So I'll approach them on.
Evans' long-term plan looks at potentially going down that road as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Come, she has a question up here, but around, I think she has a question.
Yes, they do.
Waiting for the chairperson to do it. Is that my question?
I was, are we,
We're not there yet.
yeah, I think we should. I mean, I know we took one comment already, but if it's a point of clarification, great, if
The
it's,
only clarification I had is last meeting, there was discussion about the possibility for a grant for the electric.
Oh, yeah.
We just
for
talked about
the
that.
rebates,
They always
yeah,
rebate,
for
yeah.
rebates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we're
not
looking
okay.
at that, yeah.
Okay, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
good
make
point.
sure that was on the agenda.
Yeah, we're gonna look it up.
Okay. All right. So to our broader discussion. Do people feel like they're ready to vote to recommend a site? Do we feel like there's still more information unfolding? Sense of the room?
It's that, like they call it polling the table.
All right,
without a
holding
vote.
the table,
Without a
Dennis.
vote, without a vote.
I'm ready to vote, especially in light of, I mean, I had virtually all the information last week in light of the two substantial pieces of information which have come in tonight. That is that the school, the administrative legal walkthrough with the schools district might be more time consuming and cumbersome than we had initially conjectured, combined with some probability that there will be lower utility costs at Bishop Road than we had initially kind of considered. I mean, those two pieces of information kind of confirm my initial thoughts about where we should go, and I'm prepared to vote.
Well, my problem is I was leaning towards the site on Washington Street. In large part because of the difference in utilities and you know, costs. Because I'm getting worried about how things are mounting up. But I agree that the situation with the school department does not sound good. And if it passes at all, it could take a very long time. So, and it sounds like the cost at Bishop Road is going to be less than anticipated. So, you know, I guess I feel like that's the only choice at this time.
I'm ready to go for Bishop Road.
I'm not, you know, I think that there's too much that we don't know. You know, we don't really know where the school committee stands. And you know, I really am concerned about not only the utility costs of Bishop Road, but also the length of time that it might take us to, you know, to get the power there. So you know, I'd like more information. You know, I'd like to do some due diligence on getting a commitment from National Grid as to, you know, about how long it's gonna take and how much it's gonna cost. You know, before I would, I guess, before I would vote for Bishop.
I'm ready to vote, and I'll reserve my comments to when we make the motion, whatnot.
Okay.
I'm ready to vote, just like Ken, I'm ready to vote.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of agreed with Ellen, kind of the alternative has swayed, you know, with the way the school committee went toward the Bishop Road site. Alternative to that, we don't have any other sites at this point unless you start looking privately, which is gonna cost something. So never mind the utility cost. So I think at this point, we're gonna vote to that from where we are today.
Okay. I would say I'm probably ready to vote as well. Like Ellen, I guess I can hold my comments where I can see. You know, to me, it's whether I wanna have the big piece of the public education and input be about the added cost of the utilities, or whether I want the additional public education and input to be about convincing folks that that nobody actually really does need that piece of land for something else, and one of them, the utilities cost feels more cut and dry and less emotional or sentimental to me than the school district's future needs. But I think those are the two things, because if we go with a proposal that's too expensive, you risk, you know, a no vote at town meeting. And if you go with something that is mired down in issues that you really can't impact, you're also run the risk of getting a no vote at town meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the senior center site selection and building committee choose the Bishop Road site as the recommended location for the new senior center.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, yeah, understood, yeah. The chair says aye, so, that motion passes, so,
I'd like to make a few more comments about.
oh,
this.
sure, absolutely, yeah.
I know we already voted, but should have done it before the vote.
Oh, further
So,
discussion.
one of the things that swayed me about Bishop Road, not the least of which was the utilities, was a little birdie called me and said that if I was a developer, which was I was, I work for developers, which side would you pick? And if the logic is immediate, because when you take the school piece, even when we get that triangle of land,
Mhm.
that would be it. But if we can get the town behind us on Bishop Road, we can open up an opportunity for other uses other than the senior center.
Mhm.
And the land at Bishop Road, we walked it, fortunately, the DPW gave myself and my hiking partner Jonathan permission to walk it from the opposite direction. So we didn't have to go through the fence.
Mhm.
That land is magnificent. There are trails out there. There's so many opportunities for seniors we could develop an entire easy trail system. The grades are all workable. It's basically beautiful material.
Mhm.
So I think we're gonna gain on construction costs at the end of the day, which will help offset the utility costs. Because a site contractor can go in there and move material, dig whatever they have to do, and grade very easily. There's a lot of materials, very usable. So there's potentially a saving which is unknown to us right now, that we can't even budget, just in moving material on and off the site. So if we were to work up by the school and we found that all the material is deleterious of some sort or can't be, we'd be hauling in everything, gravel, stone, you know, everything we need to compact, to build parking lots and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
That won't probably be a necessity down there. So there's probably an offset to the cost. We can't even anticipate that will be an improvement. But the other thing is, even working with National Grid at the school, it may not be as costly, but we still have the potential of a slowdown. Anytime you work with National Grid, even if you have to go from the street to a building, you still have to go through National Grid. So I'm not sure how far John's example was, but was the utilities close by that you're still waiting for?
Yes, they're all right there.
Is that, so what's my point? I didn't want to make that point before, but you could get delays from National Grid, even if it's right near you.
Yeah, the delay there is a transformer, not building.
So, but there's a potential delay involved with all parts of it.
Yeah.
So we can't foresee all that. But I think we have enough talent around this table to manage some of these things, and I feel confident that we can get that done. And figure out a way to get it over there, and I think there's a lot of potential there for more than even a senior center. You know, so much more can be done, great location.
And as I have had conversations with various people throughout this process, you know, the Office of Economic and Community Development has said, and their various members have said that, you know, they are excited about that idea, that they think that's a win for the town in general. That's obviously outside the scope of our committee.
Yeah.
But, they did mention that to me as well.
And thank you for that.
I think we gain security too, because it's already fenced. So.
So I think that would that fence move? I mean, that's neither here nor there, but I mean.
The fence is around the perimeter of that parcel. It's actually, it was put there as part of when the town got the property from the army.
Okay.
So it was a requirement of that to keep it away from the army. Yeah, so I guess we would have to obviously make sure it's symbiotic with the brush dump and everything and the way that works.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the DPW gonna get territorial about this?
We have to have a lot.
I mean, out here, I don't, you know, I
It
just
was
see it
just,
pretty-
I was.
Yeah.
I
I don't know.
We'll just run roughshod over that guy.
I'm not so sure whether she's.
So in terms of I know that Devon's has been wonderful to work with in this regard and have spoken about moving the gate or having the gate moved. What would be the next process for moving the gate down to the triangle? What needs to happen?
So I actually reached out to them. They haven't done anything yet. They're supposed to have a meeting with Fisheries and Wildlife, National Fisheries and Wildlife, to see if they can move it all the way to the triangle. Because right now they could technically move it to the border of the Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge, which is further past the existing brush gate, but it's not quite to the triangle.
I see.
So that has to happen, that meeting, and it hasn't been set up. And I reached out to John Marco from Devon the other day, and they're working on it, but I just gotta keep pushing.
Yeah.
But they want to be.
I mean, I think
not just
that
us.
anytime, I mean, depending on the weather, obviously, but anytime between now and the spring, I mean, I don't know when the flooding is most likely to occur, but I wouldn't anticipate it's gonna occur in the next several months.
Do we,
They want to,
March and April.
they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. They said-
does this property?
Yeah, no, Devon wants to do it, yeah,
They'll do it.
Does this property abut the National Wildlife?
Yes.
to the west.
So we're gonna have some special permitting. requirements.
Oh, there is,
And there's wetlands
Yeah,
permitting too, because that's
We're too,
wetlands.
no, we're too far from the wetlands.
No, if your property touches wetlands,
Doesn't,
no.
you sure?
Yeah,
The national,
the
what's
wetlands.
this flooding that we're?
that's way down, the river, with the river.
That's
that's-
not-
No, that's three-quarters of a mile.
Further west.
That's not our,
No.
we're not adjacent. And we're not adjacent to any streams.
No,
Oh, good.
there's rare
Probably-
species.
What we got is natural heritage and the ECEs.
We have any archaeological issues on that side?
We found a couple of stones, but.
No, no.
Salamander and
The
box.
thing was a gravel pit before.
Jimmy
The
Hoffa.
state record show it as a former gravel pit when it was the army. They've excavated material around it before,
Is it-
pushed around.
Even though that's true. Hopefully, there's been no. Native material found around the site. Because we've run into some real,
We weren't working.
they come out of the woodwork when you
Yeah.
hit one of those things.
Oh, You
No
know, I have a
fossils.
question. Are we gonna delineate exactly which is our site, so we avoid, the question of being adjacent to.
That's a good question.
Wetlands,
You have to have that through the registry of deeds.
okay. Is the site and part of an ACEC?
It's in an ACEC.
And so is that gonna require additional?
It requires an application.
I don't think it has a meat, but I don't think it has a ENF filing. I don't think it triggers that, but it does trigger priority habitat or rare species, which goes through divisions of fisheries and wildlife state level. And I actually have I had set up a meeting, kind of a pre-consultation with them to ask about this site. That's been a couple of weeks from now, just. And among other things.
Ellen, that's a great question. When we were gonna try to get the land from the high school, we were told that we wouldn't have to break that off as a lot. So that's an approval not required lot, because it's got free frontage. It's an easy lot to break off. It may be a huge advantage to us to create a lot here. And making sure that lot stays away from the other. It's outside of the buffer zone, it's outside. I don't know how DPW and select board would feel about that. If we in essence create a lot, that would buffer us, your land would be between us and the fisheries.
Yeah, I think we do have to do,
Yeah,
that's a
we-
step here is to demarcate.
Yeah, we have to find out
Make
legally
sure
what do we do for
DPW is
that.
here,
Right.
is here, and our functions here.
But it would be potentially a big advantage to do, because then we would only engineer what's on our land, on our lot. That was really the question.
Do we have a clear understanding of the process required to acquire the lot, that is, break the lot off?
Yeah.
We know what the process is. Do you want to make that explicit now? So that,
It's a simple question, hire a local civil engineer who's already surveyed the land, we have all the documents already. All the perimeters, documents from the Army have been given to DPW, so everything is there, all the meets and bounds, dimensions, the frontage.
Is there a survey available?
Get the whole
Oh,
story.
we need that, yeah.
Well, what I'm getting at is it'd be advantageous to us to break out a lot.
Yeah.
Now we do a survey of the lot,
Yeah,
and we're not surveying the whole perimeter, the
world.
whole place.
so these would all be like next steps
The
that
next
we're all getting into.
Right.
You know, we didn't vote the site, but these are the considerations. of
Yeah,
it.
but
I think
we
we're
need that
just sort of
input
starting.
from, town council.
Right, okay.
Did
Yep,
Jim
I
want
will-
to say anything?
I'm fine,
Oh,
I'm agree with everybody.
okay. You said you were gonna say anything. Are you all gonna say anything about sites?
I go with it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I like the school site, and I still think you should probably chat it up with the school a bit more, but I just like its location within town in terms of the overall town. One of the things is that often, and we're not subject to this, I think this committee has been very good about finding sites that are not throwaway sites. And we work in a lot of towns. Oh, we have this old school we abandoned, let's give it to the seniors, and it's in a terrible location or whatever. These are both pretty decent sites. I just have to like the Harvard Groton one because of its location. It's, although it's a police chief said, or we're kind of near an intersection, but what's interesting about it is because if you know where the school is, you know where the senior center is.
Yeah.
If you've never heard of Bishop Road and the back access to, it takes a while to figure that out. It took us a bit to find DPW where this guy lived. And then we wandered up through, we came up this road this way, and it's beautiful. I am very concerned about adjacent permits. They get very complicated.
You're allowed to be concerned.
And also, we seem to recall there are some wetlands over here somewhere. And it seems to be part of the same parcel that the town owns. It'd be very important to separate. And we don't have any vernal pools nearby, do we?
No.
Because those have been the bane of our existence in Massachusetts. New Hampshire, they don't seem to care about vernal pools. Down here, we have, for good reason. So, and the other thing is that you mentioned the word sludge or something,
That's way.
Yeah, that's far away. It's like
Way
a
on the
quarter mile or more sludge land.
Yeah,
That's near our water
are
plant.
we uphill or downhill from there?
We're flat.
So yeah, it's very flat.
No,
Alright.
we're up.
We're upriver.
And the last thing was that I do know that we discussed why we're not gonna have a well, we're gonna bring water in. Is that there are some subsoil contaminations. It should not be a problem for the user groups. We often do gardens, things like that. Do you know of anything else that
No.
Devon's might have done to us? No. Well, we would probably recommend the town to do a 21E. We're at 21E. We did a job just recently where they,
You know, 21 year lot. It's a massive.
Yeah,
no,
We have to-
just,
We
just.
have to break a lot off first.
Yeah.
To say.
Yeah, break the lot off, but I would recommend it, because what happened in Long Meadow is that they discovered that the lot they picked for a different use group, that we're parallel with the DPW. They discovered that the previous owner, rather than properly disposing of asbestos, buried it everywhere. So we do believe DPW didn't do that. But I highly recommend, once we define the lot, we can't afford a surprise, so.
What's a 21E?
It's an environmental,
Urban
it's
environment.
just we do only a preliminary one. They do history on the site. They'll do a little bit of testing here and there, but it's not a deep, it's not a deep.
it's an environmental.
We have money for that right now?
Yeah, you could probably do a preliminary,
Phase one is just a paper
21 years
exercise.
yeah, it's really research of the site,
Right,
and Devon's will pop up as an issue. They'll cite. that.
yeah.
But it's really worth doing it. I can tell you, it was a $2.5 million mistake long ago.
But we're not in long run right now.
Yeah, Yes, we're in error.
I'll just blame that on you.
Yeah, I didn't do that site.
One thing I wanted to mention about the Bishop Road. When we first moved here, I was, interested that we were lucky because we're, Autumn Ridge, which is across from the hospital. And that they always plowed in front of the hospital and down Washington Street past the school. That was always the first thing plowed, it seemed to me. And I was able to follow that route to get down to the train station. But if I went off that route to try to get parking, then I was very likely as late as 9 and 10 in the morning to hit snow-covered roads. And I was wondering, since not many people use Bishop Road, if we're gonna be able to confirm that that road will be plowed.
He's gonna personally plow it.
Yeah, it does get plowed by devs, I'll look into that. I mean, I'm sure especially if this was down there, it's gonna be.
But the road is currently
Yeah,
plowed
Devon's
during the
stuff.
winter by Devon's.
I think you'll have to worry less about the road and more about the senior center parking lot than anything else.
Yeah,
And I have to say that Ayer has the best snow removal.
Yes.
Except for sidewalks, I won't.
yeah.
Some parts of town get done, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, that was mine.
We wanna move on to the building costs and.
So,
Yeah, I love.
I'm ready.
I love your guys. They come down and they angle it away from my house and push all the snow to the other side of the street for me.
All right, so it sounds to me like we have a couple of action items following up on Bishop Road. That include, asking town council about not just the process, but the advantages of, parceling that lot off first before we start talking about abutting issues and, environmental, and all of that. So, are there any other action items for our next meeting that would?
Well, I mean, we've already talked about it, but the utilities, especially National Grid.
Right.
And on the water. Is our DPW, are we capable of doing that, or we have to contract that out?
That's gonna be for construction contracted.
But you guys have been designing those kinds of things in the past.
We can design
Where's the last hydrant on Bishop Road there, you know?
on Bishop, it's,
Way back.
yeah, it's over the east side of the railroad tracks. So you do have to go into the railroad tracks if we tie into our system.
Were you gonna bring it?
Devin says.
Should we start an RFP for the survey? Get an RFP out and get that lined up so that we have the surveyor, so when town council says the blessing, we've already got the guy picked and we don't have to wait another 90 days.
I just thought of something,
'Cause that's-
even if we had the lot out and open the lot with now, we just do it. It could be used by the DPW indefinitely if nothing happens, you just have signed another sheet to, that's all you got. So there's really nothing lost in deciding
So
to
Dan,
take
what,
a 4-acre chunk out or something like that.
are we talking like a 6-inch or an 8-inch line? You think?
Yeah,
How many, what's the span on a hydrant? What's the span from the hydrant to
300 feet.
So what do you think from where that is on the other side of tracks to where the site is? What are we talking, 12, 15?
No, I looked, I have that.
Linear feet?
Anyway, I don't know if I have it in that memo,
I think
but
it was-
did calculate that. It was all part of my background. calc.
I think it was-
Provided the
I think it was 1,600, I wanna say it was
Yeah, it was like
1,600 feet.
1,600 feet. so-
2,100 feet you had.
Yeah, it's 2,100 to Bishop, right? I think it's
Yeah.
1,600 to Devon's.
Yeah.
And do we,
So that's 700.
do we know which one is preferable, or do we know? Was the shorter one the one that you thought best, or is, you know what I mean?
The preferable one is to take it all the way, so there's a loop.
Yeah, that'd be.
You don't have a dead end, that's the problem, that's another thing.
I mean, I can.
I think regarding utilities, if we said 90 grand to do a septic,
95, something like that.
okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna cost way more than that to run sewage from where.
You can't do it.
Yeah, so we gotta go to septic.
Yeah.
I think we're leaning towards propane, and I'll get a quote tomorrow and see what that's gonna cost for 1,000 gallon tanks, correct? 1,000.
Okay,
Now we need, I think our biggest dilemma, we all agree, is gonna be National Grid.
Absolutely.
I think everything else will be pretty smooth. Oh, we wanted that.
On
utilities.
I wrote that down. The public bid, you know?
Your mouth, the God feeling.
Yeah.
All right, we'll turn
Thank
it
you.
over to you to present the preliminary project cost. I do wanna, you're probably gonna say this, but I do wanna clarify for the public record, for the committee, for people here. This is just like our floor plans. It is the first draft. It will move, it will shift. So there, take it away.
What you need to do, I'll preface that, thank you for saying that. Katie. It is definitely a draft. I've listed what I think are possible add alternates. Whenever we bid a project, we have a list of add alternates, because our job is to come within very close to the marketing, to the cost estimate. And what we do is that we have this very preliminary process, right, which is done very conservatively. I want to be very careful about it. There's nothing worse than coming up with a low number and turning around to the town and saying, I'm sorry, it's $3 million more. So this is pretty conservative. I say pretty because we're still in a very inflationary period for construction. You know, one of the things that, you know, you often hear over the radio is that inflation has come down. It's reducing, it's still inflation, it's still inflating. And we're still inflating very rapidly, not so much on the general consumer goods right now, but in the construction industry. So what I've done here is I've got 1, 2, I don't know why this, I had this labeled by numbers, so I'm sorry, I printed it out without the numbers on it. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 suggested add alternates. I included those in the total cost, assuming that the desire would be is to get all the alternates. But we often, when we bid it, you might only get 2 of them. We have to list them in the order we want it, and to meet the budget. So you go down the line, we have the basic building, it's 14,450 square feet. We have it at, with the add alternates added to it, 11,751,000 divided by that square footage gives us a number of about $813 a square foot. Reminding you, everybody, including the public, this is public bid. So we pay what our wage rates are very different than if you and I were gonna build a garage in our house. We're paying carpenters all in $100 an hour. When I build my garage, I'm paying $35, $40 if I can get a deal. So we're paying very high rates because it's part of the public bid process. I carry a contingency of 5% because it's new construction. If it was going to be renovation, I carry close to 10%. If it's complicated new construction, I carry 7.5%. I feel both sites were pretty clean sites from the information that we did from subsoil investigations. Later on in the process, if it's approved through town meeting, we will do deep drilling to verify what we found out in the first 10 feet of dirt. So I don't expect a problem with that, but because we didn't hit water table, which is really important. And that would be very helpful in our septic design. Septic, this number, I don't have any of the utility costs that we just discussed, this site. As the other, I have what would be normal utility costs coming from nearby on the street.
So, and what is that number? So normally,
It's in the number.
what's that?
It's in the number. It's in the overall cost.
It's in the,
We don't carry it a separate number yet. You will get a separate number when you get a detailed, but we can't do that. We didn't fully decide.
Okay.
Yeah. We have it for Bishop because there's nothing there.
Right.
And this one, we're just going to the street.
No, I understand. And my purpose was for the public consumption. That is, I wanted to be able to subtract out what the utility costs at Groton Harvard from that number so that when asked by the
still have-
public, what's the difference?
We still have very similar costs. They bring the power to us from the street. We take it from the street to us.
Yeah.
They bring the water to us. We bring the water to. So it's the same cost. I gotta bring in a 6-inch line for sprinkler, domestic, what have you. That's in both sites, assuming utilities are on Bishop Road. Which we're working. on this.
So to clarify, those utilities costs were to bring it down the road for Bishop.
Right.
On either site, you would have had from the street into the building,
I see, okay.
so that
So
number.
it's still in that number.
Yeah.
The only one that we don't have is sewer.
Right.
And sewer, bringing it into the site probably is, $8,000-9,000. And we've got a 90,000 plus minus septic system, so my payment would be 80,000 or 85,000. Sure. I'm sorry.
No, all right,
that's-
I understand. Thank
So the owner's contingency, and I can tell you from our experience. I'll record this, we rarely go over 1.5% of the owner's contingency in terms of unforeseen issues or maybe errors and omissions. Errors and omissions usually run about 0.25%, which is very low. The courts say 5% is fine, I don't consider that fine. So we carry 5%, we might end up using 2.5% of that. That leftover money can go into furnishings or whatever, if you have it left over. But we're trying to be reasonably conservative right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look, I can wait to the end, but
sure.
so it's interesting when you put the owner's contingency before the other list of warrants,
Yes.
so it's only contingency on the top part,
Yes,
and I'll comment later on the rest.
yeah. We sometimes carry a design contingency, but I carried a number of numbers here that I feel are conservative. And I didn't want to fill it up with too many odds and ends. So we have architectural engineering, owner's project manager, which I changed from the last one. I was informed that OPMs, and by the way, the town may have on staff an OPM, but some towns do, but they have to be pretty full-time. 3% is usually what that number is. We do a cost estimate almost without fail in every community we work in. The OPM does a parallel cost estimate. And their estimate usually runs a little bit lower. Ours runs around 75,000, but then they put them together as we do a 30%, 50%, 90% cost estimate. To feel the pulse of where the project's going. And we make adjustments as we go along to stay within the stated budget that we're working on.
I'm sorry, I don't really understand that, what the OPM cost estimate, so it's the project manager's cost estimate?
Yes,
I mean, so in addition to paying project manager, we have to pay him to create a
Yes.
cost estimate?
yes.
$50,000.
25.
Our normal cost estimate costs 75,000. They look at every nut bolt. It's probably 25 pages long. Very detailed. They do complete takeoffs, how many square feet of sheet rock, steel, how much tons of steel, rebars, concrete, cubic yards, the whole shebang, insulation. And if you want, at the next meeting, I'll bring a typical cost estimate, or I'll send it over to you.
Okay.
It's it has to be very detailed because we need to come as close as possible. It's my only really sleepless nights are, and I prefer the biggest company. Building commissioning. We always recommend that varies. We've seen it as high as 60,000 as low as 30,000. I put in 45 grand, we should be able to get it done. What building commissioning is, they review all of the waterproofing, roofing. We look at, we do tests on the windows to make sure they don't leak. Both, the number one cost for a building today running it is air infiltration. Building commission. We're watching a lowest bidder build the building. And we have to stay on them, so commissioning is a really important part of it.
So
They also look at our drawing.
So the building commissioner, or the building commissioning
done by an independent.
inspects the quality of the construction to make sure that everything
On-
fits tightly in.
Yeah, from the viewpoint of what they're looking for, which is integrity of the building.
Yeah.
And it's a very important role. There's, we would have the town engage that through the OPM, because the OPM represents you.
Right,
They're your independent.
and to some extent, I'm asking these questions because we as a committee will have to go before the town and help them understand why it is that we got to this number. And I can easily imagine anybody on the floor at town meeting asking these questions as to why do we need this and why is it so expensive?
So I'll help define that. I'll, what he's gonna be, I'll help you, I'll help you define that too.
But John, so you got building commissioning is 45,000, then go down one more, I mean, two more, you got clerk of the works, who I believe the clerk of the works I worked for before. They're on our side, correct?
Yes, they work.
Why can't that clerk of the works can't look out for that, or is that? some
Look out for
different things?
what? Building commission? No.
Yeah, can't,
I can tell you. I've had highly questionable clerks. I would not. Building commission is done by a really top-notch engineering firm. The clerk is a guy who's, if he does his job, or her, does his job properly. You'll be looking at the drawings a week ahead of time, knowing what's coming up next, and seeing that it's being done per the drawings and specifications.
Okay.
We've had clerks that have not done that properly, and we've had a lot of. But the clerk generally is hired through the OPM, or you can hire them independently. Yeah.
What's the difference between, I mean,
Go ahead.
roles of the OPM, I'm sorry, it's just, the roles of the OPM and the clerk of the works.
Well, two things. One is the OPM is required by law. On any job over, I don't know what it is now, 500,000, 100,000, and we're all over that. So the state mandates that. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of towns think they can run the job. And they get into a huge hassle between the contractor, the architect, and what they think it should be. And there's been lawsuits up all over the place until they started the OPM thing. I'm not a big fan of the OPM. A good architect can do that job. But there's lots of architects who are not particularly good at that. So, and also you can get into a hostile situation. And the OPM has his contract directly with the town, not through the architect. And the clerk either works directly for the town or through the OPM, depends who you have through the OPM and how you feel about it. And there are good ones, and there are highly questionable ones. And we might.
Is that a
willing-
lowest
What are their
bid
roles?
situation?
No, OPM is not low bid.
No.
OPM is professional. So like architects, OPMs. They present their credentials, you pick the best one. And that's who you go with, and then you get a price, or you carry a budget, and say, this is my budget. Hopefully you can do it for that. We have one OPM that worked in the town of Holyoke, hired them. And they paid him more than they paid the architect, which was very embarrassing. Since he didn't do the drawings and had no liability.
Right.
Yeah. But that was their choice. Final drawing review, that's a structural review, it's required. Often done. You hire we can make some recommendations, but you hire an independent structural engineer. He looks at the drawings. Mike makes some comments. Generally, they charge between $8,000 and $12,000, I think. If you pay more than 10, you pay too much.
So John, not to interrupt, but where's our building inspector, where does he come in on this? He's gonna expect this in different stages, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So this is off the track, our building inspector shows up, whatever he does.
Yeah.
Who's he gonna meet? Will he meet the clerk of the works? Who's he gonna meet when he's there, and then?
He meets the general contractor.
Okay,
And if there's ever an issue, the requirement is to notify us immediately.
Okay.
And that's the clerk's job too. If the clerk sees a problem, he doesn't go running you. Although he's welcome to tell you that, he has to come to us. We're the architects of record, so we have the liability on this project. So they come to us, we discuss it with you as a committee or whoever you have running your OPM. And
So they can't that is any changes or.
No
in the pro-
direction in the field by anybody other than.
So the specifications that your final drawings are sacrosanct and no changes can be made without asking, that is neither the OPM nor the clerk of the works nor the
Nope.
building commissioning can change anything.
Yeah.
Without, okay.
And the specs are about, there are 2 volumes about this thick.
Mhm.
Some of it's road, a lot of it's specific. And the reason for that, because what happens is a change order appears out of nowhere, and the contractor, well, you know, the clerk told me to do this. Or the old, somebody on the committee told me, here's your bill. No, we don't do that. You don't want that, we don't want that.
Who runs the monthly meetings or weekly meetings on the job?
We run it with the OPM. We often will work it out with the OPM who represents you, so it would be with your committee. We'll say, who's taking the notes? The last job, they had a terrific young manager on it. Rebecca.
Yes, it was great.
And she ran, I think she was a Marine drill sergeant. She ran the committee and her notes were perfect. I wrote my own notes, we compared them, and she issued them. We always write our own. But who formally does it, it'll be worked out at the time.
Since most of these folks haven't built a project like this, and I agree with what John said about the liability, so it's typically under the section of the code called control and construction.
Yes.
So
But
the
you write these
architect is
certificates.
responsible for sending reports consistently on a regular basis to the building commission. Then the architect is responsible for signing off on the schedule of values or the AIA schedule, whatever we call it, for the monthly bills and things like that.
Yeah, we have to certify the pay reports.
So
We
Yeah, a
asked the
lot of the
OPM,
architect is gonna-
we asked the OPM's opinion on it too. I mean, the OPM will tell us, we will review it and say, we don't agree with these things, we talked to the contractor. He said, oh, okay, you know, I realize I'm charging more than I should have done. And then we rule on it, but we give it to the OPM next, who represents you, before we certify it to the contractor.
Okay.
And generally, we've not had many issues with the pay requests, most contractors.
we don't, because the price is so high, why would they have a problem?
I don't
They're already
disagree.
getting paid more than.
Our argument in Wilbraham was, you're getting 11.9 million. What are you complaining about?
I wanted 12 too.
Yeah,
That's what I'm complaining about.
so going down the line here, construction testing. We test all the concrete. I don't care where they're pouring it. We ask for testing on that. We have specific requirements, 4,000 PSI for sidewalks, 5,000 for something else. And then 3,000, whatever. So we have, and you get something like US testing, that, you know, you hire them and they get notified by the contractor, we're pouring concrete today, or we're doing asphalt. They check temperature of the asphalt, they check the compression of it, they go all that stuff. So testing is really important. That number can vary a lot. We're carrying 35 grand. Bidding and advertising has gone way down from what it used to cost because we do it electronically. We usually use biddocs.com. And they've been excellent. And that, therefore, you're not killing a lot of trees, you know, everything goes out digitally. And sometimes they'll ask for sets, we don't tell them to print your own. So that's a pretty generous number for test of that. So testing is our geotech drilling. Well, we drill sites in specific areas, similar to our test pits. And we go down 21 feet or to refusal, i.e. we have ledge or a rock. And then we need a site topographic survey, which we're carrying a number for that because we don't have one yet. And we would like to get one on board. And you can either keep it in this number or put it, pick it out, do it yourself. Same 25. We're assuming we're surveying 3 to 4 acres, you know, topographic, trees, etc. I think you can get that for 25 grand. We're carrying furnishings, fixtures and equipment. This is not kitchen stuff, that's all.
That's where I
included.
was, that
The
was. my
kitchen's completely outside of that, that's in the basement,
question. Okay,
and that's $100,000 probably. So this is all your.
Only?
Yeah, it depends what you need.
More than that.
No,
So the-
no, our kitchen runs about $100,000.
So the kitchen is in
Or
the
the-
11,198 number?
Yes. FF&E is furniture, you know, ping pong tables, pickleball nets, whatever.
Water coolers,
The beer
no,
distributor,
water coolers,
oh, yeah,
or bubblers, I don't know.
no, those are in the basement. Those are in the basement, and they're bottle fillers too.
So John, the owner's project manager, is that put out the bid too? Who, does that
You
go-
put out an RFQ on that,
And we,
You will
that's
do
separate,
that.
okay.
yeah, you will do that, I
Yeah.
want you to see all.
One question I
Yeah.
caught my eye was the pickleball courts at almost $100,000, is that? How do they,
$50,000 a piece.
is it,
Oh, yeah, well, you gotta dig up 24 inches of soil, put down compact drainable surface, and then you've got 2 coats plus the finished paint on coat. You got a fence all the way around it. Because pickleballs fly a lot, especially amongst us guys who are playing it. And, so by the time, and by the way, you will probably want some kind of shade device around it.
And sound deadening panels?
Bishop Road, the only
Yeah,
neighbor,
yeah,
the
Bishop Road.
cemetery.
You should come, if you want, come during the day to Long Meadow and see. All 5 courts are full. 3 indoor courts going all the time. And 4 outdoor courts, so it's 7 courts. Going all the time.
I can't imagine pickleball inside, that must be so noisy.
It's not bad. First of all, it's in a gym with acoustic treatment. We have a lot of acoustic treatment. It's, I'll send you a video. Then we're carrying, security and IT together. That could run. We had a real problem in Wilbraham, and I'll warn you ahead of time. The OPM hired an outside, IT guy. Nobody was watching him. They didn't give us any of the drawings. They put like 4 2x2 speakers in. Even in a room like this, it would have 6 speakers in it. I don't know why. Then they hung speakers all over the place, in the multi-purpose room. They must have spent $80,000 without any overview. They just said, do us, and we don't want to do that. We want to be very careful. We'll have a hearing loop in the multi-purpose room, which is for people with hearing aids. And you, almost all new hearing aids now have this little device in it that allows you to hear as if somebody's sitting right next to you. It's in the floor and it runs through an amplifier. It requires a separate EA type thing in the area, you know, for presenting, you know, for lectures or what have you. And that's
in
in
the
our.
basement. Oh, that's an FF&E, okay.
That system is, but the hearing loop is in your basement.
Okay,
That has to be done during construction because it's embedded in the concrete floor. And it's a whole series of, and by the way. I learned about this maybe 4 years ago doing a project in Tallahassee, Florida. I asked these guys, what's this, because it was added later, it was a surface thing. Turns out the state house, churches have it, state house has it, courthouses have it. And all of our senior centers, the last 4 or 5 have it. It's a very effective way.
Is,
People are very.
and if this just occurred to me, is the parking lot and the parking lot lighting, is that all included
Yes.
in the 11,198? Yeah.
Bollards are too,
Oh,
but your insurance for insuring the cars that get hit by other cars, that's separate. Then we keep going down the line. Right now, soft costs are around 23%, of which some of it you may be doing separately. Generally, our soft costs run around 18% at the final. Then I'm escalating to, actually, spring is a little aggressive, it's probably midsummer. My cost estimate said you gotta carry 5%. I think that's
And that date is your anticipated construction start date or the bid go out date?
The bid date. And the bid date's probably gonna be July. We normally never bid in the summer, but we've discovered lately that there's a lot of people that build their dance card. And they will bid it in summer without any problem, so we've got pretty good bids in the summer. When I say summer, I don't like bidding, late July or in August. Everybody's on vacation.
And is there any way to predict the length of time between the bids going out and the start of construction? Are we talking?
They got 2 weeks to start after bid.
No, but the start of construction after the bids go out. Typically,
We asked them to mobilize within a couple of weeks. After the contract signed. Contract is signed in 2 weeks. The one thing that you have to be aware of, you can get protests. We've been fortunate that in all of our. We had a threat of a protest once about maybe 6 years ago. But protests can mess things up. In North Andover, we had COVID, it caused a lot of trouble, and the town didn't have control of the complete site. And the bids came in, and then they didn't get the contractor started for 18 months. And they basically had to reprice everything. So we don't anticipate that, but it was really a bad experience in North Andover.
So John, if the bids go out 2 weeks, they can start, right? What about the company that's low bid? And says, I can't start for a month, so a month and a half.
No, he doesn't have that choice, it's in the spec.
Okay, so he knows that he's bidding that job, he has.
He has to start, he has no choice.
All right.
It's in the front end of the spec.
But does he have to continue, can he come in, just dig a hole
Nope.
and,
It's
or is it a
continuous right
continuous?
to start it. The front end is, and by the way, we'll probably ask your town to comment on the front end. We have a standard front end, which covers most of the. I wouldn't say it's 100%, but it covers almost every contingency you can imagine that comes up with this public bid stuff. Like we have file sub bids, the contractor is responsible for them, but it's an arranged marriage. You know, they don't know who the file sub bid is until the bids come in. That means they don't know who their plumber is, electrician, painter, roofer, they don't know any of those guys. And then the bids come in, and they can choose not to use somebody, but it'll affect their bid. And the contractor has the option of bonding if any of the file sub bids, and they often do, because file sub bids. We had one that's been on 3 of our jobs and they went under on the contractor on their last job. They bonded it. They already had the bond on, so they completed the work of the bonding, and it doesn't interfere with us.
John, on the owner's contingency, you said you're carrying 5%, right?
Yeah,
And but you said you think more it's gonna be like 1.5%.
hopefully, but you will end up using that. You always do. I never had a town not use all their contingency.
But why wouldn't, if we're confident enough we can do it at a lower contingency than 5, why wouldn't make the
I'm
number
not
better?
confident.
You're not,
Thank you.
okay, you're not,
No, that's why I carry 5%.
all right.
And if this was renovation, I carry 10. Which is a big number. And by the way, I've never had a town not use their contingency. You'll have something that you need.
New car?
Second van.
Second
We'll
van.
have that by then.
We'll talk about that. And what I've done here is, over the years, we've collected the things that we went into, and I've listed them here. And I knock on wood, we've been very, very close on our initial draft one. And this is adjustable. Now, right away, you can say, maybe you don't want the walking roof, you know, that's all the way around the building. We carried $100 a foot for that, but we figured we could suspend it. Building is a steel building, we could suspend it using the steel structure rather than building new columns and footings all the way around the building.
I don't want to walk on the roof.
That'll hold you. It's slow.
Clip in.
We actually thought about suspending it with rods, but it looked horrible. It just
Yeah.
And that,
Considerable.
that unfortunately is not on the agenda because I didn't know it was coming, but I did see there were new elevations.
Yeah, well, some new three-dimensional stuff. We're gonna, your next meeting, we're gonna do a lot of interior renderings of what it could be looking like. That'd be everything from the multi-purpose room to the library lounge, fitness classrooms.
So, and the FFE number, where did you get that number from? That is a previous building of this size, that's how much they spent, or you just know how many pieces of furniture and you averaged out the numbers?
Wouldn't that be nice if I did? We're carrying I think I have it there.
So, and the reason
We're
I
carrying
asked, is-
$15 a square foot.
okay, so, and the reason I ask is that, well, I mean, it's gonna be important to everybody who's using the building, what kind of furniture is there, the tables, how
Oh, yeah.
comfortable are the chairs, and all of that stuff. And you would anticipate that we can get that
Yes,
at 200 grand or
Yeah.
a little over.
we did Wilbraham for less, but it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
We
Because if
We
anybody,
don't have we usually would like to be involved in the design and selection of that. That's an additional fee if we do that for you. And the reason why is because furniture is very specific to our age group. All of our dining room chairs, are as lightweight as possible, all have arms. Because we can't do this, it's extremely difficult. Our ab muscles are weak as we get older, and we need that leverage. And even if you're young, you need that leverage. We do have a bunch of chairs that don't have arms because we use that in our fitness classes. Sit and be fit, we got to swing arms around. Sit and be fit.
When John is done.
Don't be silly, that's very popular.
When John finishes, I'd like to make a few comments.
Yeah, so the FF&E is very specific to the use of it. Okay, all right, go ahead.
And I have a question.
Oh,
Okay, so. This has to do with your contract. Are we to expect that what you showed us tonight is part of the estimate that we're getting from the contract? Or that is very limited in my estimation, this particular piece of work. Because I'm looking for a breakdown of the building costs by category of construction, and I'm looking. for
You're not gonna
breakdown
get that
in the
at
site cost.
feasibility.
Not every one of you
Yeah.
stated.
Yeah.
Like you just said with Dennis, I want to see it on a schedule of values, which is what I expected as far as our agreement was.
No,
So you're trying to tell me your estimated, this is.
this is what I do in every single job. Wilbraham,
Yeah, but you're not in every single job.
Yeah.
You're right here at the town. of
Yeah.
Granite.
this is our process.
That's what's included in
Your
your.
next one will be a 60-page cost estimate under general
Doesn't have
construction.
to be a 60 page. This needs to be about 3 pages with each category: plumbing, heating, HVAC, electrical, sprinkler, underground electric, just like something like that.
I don't have it
For the site
designed.
work.
We don't have it designed.
That's just category.
Yeah.
You just need to, but somehow you just.
How do I know what your plumbing is? I know what the general
Because the
cost is.
estimator knows. He
Yes,
knows.
yes, my $100,000, my $90,000 estimate,
But what I'm
yes.
saying is, it doesn't show us that here.
No,
This is the whole
you
thing.
don't. This is what I know these buildings cost.
Alright. I expected to see that or something like that for a site work breakdown, for instance, instead of saying it's X amount.
No.
And so that's not included.
So
Okay, thank you.
it is included in final design when we get going. Our cost estimator will take all the drawings that are, these drawings do not give enough information for our cost estimator to
Right,
do
but
that
you
kind
could-
of thing.
You know as well as I do that there's a schedule of hours, it's out there already on this building, so you could just give us the AIA document for the schedule of values for the Wilbraham project, for instance, so
Sure.
we can find.
Want it? We'll give it to you.
That's at least shows these
Okay.
people every single
I
category.
understand Wilbraham was bid 2.5 years ago.
Doesn't
None
matter.
of those numbers are any good anymore.
Doesn't matter if they're good or not, we can put the new numbers in, but if I'm trying to get people who are familiar with all the different pieces here. So they know what to expect, plumbing's 175,000 or 250, and the HVAC's 500,000 and so on.
Yeah, I don't have that. I can't give it to you. It's in this number.
Okay,
Yeah.
did this guy just make the number up and then put it in the number, or is he?
No, I did not make it
Not
up.
you, I'm saying the estimator who said that he did this number for you.
No estimator did this number. I do this based on our experience today. I talked to my customer and said, where do you think the numbers are today? He says $800 and $900 a square foot, period.
Okay.
All right, that's what we do. That's the current market, and that's what this is based on, all right? When you get into final design and these drawings go into working drawings, we'll know how far the water is running from where it is. We know what kind of, the amount of steel we're talking about. It starts out very early. You get a 20 to 30% cost estimate in the first 6 to 8 weeks. And then you get a 50% cost estimate.
When we get those cost estimates.
And those are
broken
very
down by
detailed.
category.
Yes,
Exactly.
yeah, they do 2 levels. They give you a spread of each division, all right? And then every single division is broken down into multi, how many feet of copper piping, how much electrical, what's your service? Like, this has a generator. I don't know, the generator is $300,000 to $400,000.
Why not just give it to us, including 300 for the generator, and so much for this and so much for that?
And because I don't have the specifics for that. I don't know what they are yet. I know,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, we're good.
For the
Thank
sake
you.
of time,
I know.
yeah, just for the sake of time, I think we can continue that one as first, how to refine what we wanna see at each stage as we go.
Thank
So, do we wanna take just 2 seconds, Dan, because I'm aware we're about 10 after 8 now, and I wanna make sure that we have time for public input and scheduling our next meeting. So Dan, do you want to, you sent out a new version, do you want to take just a few minutes to point out what's different for us?
Yeah, so I spent a lot more time working on me and Barbie in our office for Barbie and I. We got working on 3Ds a little bit more. So I found it. Nothing has changed floor plan wise from where we have talked before, besides adding the door into the medical storage through the storage room. And making sure we had enough room for the yoga balls.
Thank you.
But
For the yoga balls.
for the yoga balls. She wanted to make sure she had room for 20 of them. You should get about 24 in there, so.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure the shape was appropriate in that.
There are,
Well, what size show the wall? Uh-huh.
I make sure that they're the biggest balls to fit in the second floor. We talked about from the last time, dividing up that larger activity room. So now we have 3 activity rooms upstairs. Both the divided activity room have storage and casework and water. Other than that, again, nothing really has changed floor plan wise. That was the biggest change on that. I spent a lot of time changing up the model really.
Yeah,
When he says model, it's a software.
Well, it's a
the
pretty,
division of that
Yeah.
activity room into 2. Is that part of this PM room petition?
yes.
So that's an
That's-
extra.
No, not,
No,
not
that's
classroom one.
petition?
classroom.
Classroom one.
So
The
that's
empty one's
45,000.
downstairs.
Yeah. And the multi-purpose room is about 100.
That one's usually.
And that's powered.
Powered, yeah.
So it would be manual upstairs,
Right.
power
Yeah.
downstairs, okay,
They slide very easily, but the
Yeah.
multi-purpose room is really big.
right, oh yeah, no, I have worked in a facility that had a manual with the high ceilings, like in the multi-purpose, it is a it's a workout.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why there's 2 closets and that's just not one big large closet up here?
Oh, in here, so one's janitors
All right, okay.
and one's storage for your both preferred parts and whatever goes on.
Right by the janitors and each floor.
I
Yeah,
don't have the slop sink. and-
Yeah.
Yep, exactly,
So I'm
yep.
Place to hang my mops.
Actually, now that you speak of that, I think the bathrooms did get moved around a bit.
I think you already moved them last time.
Oh,
We
I
put it
wasn't here
together.
last meeting, that's why.
We moved
The doors.
because it's a small area up there, we put them together,
Mhm.
Yeah.
all 3. And that works out better too.
So going to the 3 dimensions. Working on making the building look really nice. And, we went ahead and went with, shingles and board and bath. Sexy was the, what I got told earlier, but, so, again, I don't know what much to say, but we've
You don't
changed
have a
that.
grade on elevation, do you?
Oh, we have, well, these are our 3 dimensions, we do have elevations.
I'm
that
looking
are
at it straight on, the 3 dimensions get a little donkey,
I
squirrely,
love 3D.
yeah. They're a little squirrely, but if you look directly.
So if you're in the top, your north, this would be your front entrance coming into the building.
Covered,
Would you nice covered entrance and it comes right up to the drop off, so somebody could drive up and let somebody off and there will be, the passenger will be covered.
There's a patio with the.
The patio cafe is off over to your left here, that little storefront, that would be your cafe. Your administration is over on your right-hand side on the first floor. And then you would have your wellness above that, your bathrooms. And then over on your left, it's on the second. Oh, funky.
Yeah, something.
Something went funky there. This is your activity room over here.
And then there's a covered walkway shown on these
Yes.
with some intermittent columns, but until we get in the final design, we don't know whether we'll need some columns. We're hoping they're only decorative.
Yeah, they're kind of there to give it some kind of feeling of presence, and it wasn't like hanging there.
I like the look of this covered area better
Yeah.
than the last one. I think
Yeah.
it fits better
I
with
like
the
it too.
design of
Well,
the
it picks up
building.
with the character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I just say, I really appreciate that middle, what do you call that, a dormer, whatever this part is right here,
Yeah.
that it's symmetrical. I appreciate that. That was like making me twitch a little bit, that they were
It twitched
asymmetrical
me,
in
that's why we
opposite
changed
ways.
it.
Yeah, so. thank you.
Twitch
I
for
like that.
everybody.
Yeah.
And one thing you should know is that I think you're allowing, what's the width for the walking area?
I think it was about 5 foot, if you're 5 foot walking path and it's like 6 foot or
Wide.
6 overhang.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it didn't have columns, which we could. Design it,
That's
yes,
Like the length
5
of the
feet.
table.
yeah, 5 feet past each other.
Yeah.
Well, but 2 people walking abreast, can they comfortably walk abreast at 5 feet?
This is a
Yeah.
5 foot table you're sitting
Oh,
at
yeah.
here with Ellen. Can you walk next to Ellen? Okay.
You have only one-way traffic.
Well,
You can't look in opposite directions.
We'll have to make it. like
That's what kind of mood
Monday,
you're in.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
Thursday,
yeah.
Tuesday.
No,
How
5
close you wanna
feet,
be?
5 feet
Okay.
is good. A hallway. Our interior, if we did a hallway inside, we would do 7 feet. And the reason for that is because you can have people mingling, moving around, you might have a walker or a wheelchair. But this is designed for people, you're gonna set it up so everybody goes in the same direction, we're not. You know,
Always
you're gonna
one's
be
gonna
big
go
arrows
one way.
saying.
You always go
One way
there.
only, do not enter, so everybody's walking the same direction.
Okay.
And again, understand. Final design is a different animal, but we're heading in the right direction. I think there would be some adjustments made, maybe the board and battens are 12 inches and not 2 feet. And, things like that.
And
But,
the color is.
well, the color doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
We just use blue for now.
Everybody kind of liked blue, so we did it. Blue gray.
James Hardy?
It's all either that or. So
Remember the website.
there's 2 or 3 of them people that like that. The idea is that the exterior of the building, just like the whole building, is as low maintenance as possible. We like to say maintenance. Nothing to and
For worse, they'll be out of a job.
And you can see that we carried a number. For the walking route at $100 a foot for the square footage that it covers outside. It's a lot lower, because we have all the finishes, it will have lighting, but there's no HVAC or all that stuff that goes with it. And there's concrete sidewalk, but we have we generally have a concrete sidewalk around the building anyhow, so.
John, when I was.
So you're saying it-
Go ahead.
When I was in Wilbraham, I noticed on one of the, you had a walkway around part of it.
No, only part of it, no.
Yeah.
There was a sprinkler head outside.
Yes,
So is that a dry system that?
Yes.
A component, subset, will this require?
no, it's not. It's actually a special head design
Okay.
that can be, the water's interior. But if it's triggered, it has a spring in it.
Separate.
In the inside.
No, we're not doing a-
Access panel that you can do in the system. But
So
yeah.
we don't have-
Be sprinkled under this roof?
It's gotta be sprinkled. Well, we don't wanna talk to your building inspector. If we show them that it's non-combustible, they generally won't ask for it.
Okay.
But, and it is, by the way, the ceiling is cement board, steel structure, and everything is non-combustible, but some inspectors will say, I don't care. Like, to give you an idea, our benches will be powder coated metal. If they're wood, we put benches on there that are wood, there will be concern that they would burn. So,
Is there,
a couple of kids
I got a
throw.
question.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
is there, you know, what, I think it's great, thank you. The only question I had on the roof line, why you guys chose to put a pitch roof on one side of the building and a straight,
Oh, that's because there's an egress stair right there
so that,
that's coming up and that's.
It's
why I
on
couldn't-
the side, nobody really looks at it.
That's on the service
You
side.
see
won't
exactly the
notice that
same
side,
thing in Wilbraham, by the way.
But that's where the egress stair is. coming
And the
up.
flat roof up there is there.
All the way-
square it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, the flat roof is
Why
up
not just
there.
square it up on both sides?
The whole roof is flat up there.
I know that, yeah.
Yeah.
Why not just have the same detail on both ends?
We didn't like it. We don't like it.
Personal choice.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
It's
That's
an
what I
aesthetic.
kind of might thought of it.
but yeah, and we're on a flat roof because that's our maximum height allowed. So you don't really see it from the street. You'll never know there's a flat roof up there unless you walk around to the side.
And there's no parapet or anything around the roof, it just simply
No.
goes up and it returns right over to itself. The
Yeah.
rubber meets the other.
Yeah, there's a vent system up there.
You got roof drain.
but there's a ridge fender along the flat roof.
Yeah, we breathe that.
All
We
the-
use something called a hunter system, which allows the roof to breathe, so it's a cold roof with insulation below it.
That's all, you know, the whole thing. Nothing to. Perfect, thank you.
Any other committee before we go to public input?
Just around the walking room, you said it's not as, you used a figure which was like square footage interior, but this wasn't.
Yeah.
Does that mean that it will cost less than 312,000?
No, that's how much it costs. It's like I can remember, it's $100 per times a square foot of that walking. room.
So does this picture show it with the roof?
Yes. Yes.
The only other thing I think we need to follow up on, particularly if we're considering trying to go to town meeting in the fall, is to, I know that Alan has left, but if somebody could talk to the person in his office to follow up with the state, because they gave us that grant on the preparation grant,
Yes.
but said that we would be eligible for an additional, once we went into building, that we could get a construction grant.
Oh, really? That's good. I'm not.
Okay, I will follow up with her, so Alicia Hersey is taking over, the tasks that were in process, when Alan left, and I did meet with her a couple of weeks ago, just to give her the information she needed on our progress to file the interim report for the grant. And we haven't spent, I don't think, any of those funds yet, so, depending on how quickly we move, we might have to ask for an extension. So I will check in with her. She was gonna inquire with the grantor, the granting agency, to see about that. And so I'll ask her at the same time, when I follow up on that, about an extension.
Because once we get into the utilities, and then we start working on it, then we'll be, and it would be really nice to be able to go to town meeting and say that we might be able to get up to a $3 million grant.
Sure.
with some certainty.
Definitely, I agree. Yeah, and I mean, I think the timing of this is something, as we're progressing along, and we're talking with town council and the town manager's office, getting a sense. I kind of feel like fall town meeting is probably too tight at this point. But I wanna collect and move on that when the town manager comes back from vacation.
The committee aware of the timetable to spend that grant at this point? It's June of next
It's
year.
June of next
Okay,
year.
I just wanted, does
Yeah.
everyone know that? We have until June of next year to spend it, I'll get an extension.
Yes, but I'm more concerned with the follow-up grant
The next one.
for construction and how soon you could be approved for that, even if you don't get the money. You know,
Right.
takes another year.
Yeah. And I can clarify, but I think the application period for that is, I don't have the deadline for that is August.
Okay. No,
But I'll follow up with the Chen and clarify
John,
that.
what's a project, how long does a project like this take from start to finish? 14 to 16 months. So we're talking late 2026.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things that, once we get deeper into this, one of the things I want out of our cost estimator does probably 60 to 70% of all the public bid stuff in Massachusetts. So he has a very close pulse on it. He will tell us what it's like 2 years out. He's giving me an idea, and that's why our numbers are where they are right now. Between $800 and $900 a square foot, we're at like $854. We're the potential seat. Right now, it's really hard to predict where this junk is going. The construction business. It's breathtaking. We were working on a project in Nantucket that 2 years ago was $1,000 a foot. Today it's $2,500. Just because it's Nantucket, but also,
yeah, really, I was gonna
but $1,500
You gotta put everything
more.
on you gotta put everything on a boat to get it.
say.
Yeah, well, 2 years later, it's more than double. Well, it's 150.
Thank you, Joe Biden.
All right, so are we ready for public input now?
Yes.
So, all right, Pauline, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I've been waiting very patiently and I'm so sorry it's 8:30. You've been at this for 2.5 hours. I have a few comments, no questions, and I don't want to start a discussion or debate, but I just want to share my thoughts. As you all know, I have followed your committee since its inception. I missed one meeting. I forget why now, Katie, but you were surprised I wasn't there and I couldn't hear anything at one of the other ones. I will say this, I'm disappointed in your selection so quickly. I'll just leave that there. Not you, the school committee was not invited to participate. In hindsight, I think that's a mistake. I know that Robert had a review of the lease with the school department when the Save Peroni Park issue was going on, because everybody thought there could be nothing done with the lease. That is not the fact. And I don't remember any discussion at this committee about that lease. So that's the second thing I'm disappointed in. I do not like the selection of Bishop Road. It's not central to the town. The Council on Aging meetings are going to move there presumably, but they've always had to be at 18 Pond because that's where the majority of residents live, according to a discussion you and I, Katie, had in an email. So how are they going to get there? Just rhetorical, not asking for an answer. The other thing that really bothers me, and it wasn't my place to bring this up, but I'm going to bring it up tonight. When I was a selectman in 2005, shortly after the Community Preservation Act was adopted in 2001, the Housing Authority came to the town and requested a review of a potential expansion of 18 Pond Street. As I look at who's in this room, I think there are only 3, maybe 4 people who lived here at the time, including myself, so that would be 5. I won't mention names, but I can't see the third lady in the audience, but I believe she lived here then. It wasn't approved then in 2005, but this committee has not even discussed it. Yet I
You're wrong.
know from the
You're
housing
wrong.
report, it was provided to the Council on
So-
Aging.
So Pauline, just a point of clarification on that one. I have a copy of that.
Yes, I know. I know.
expansion. And so there was discussion, I'm trying to remember if it was in this meeting or if it was in the previous meeting.
It was in the previous meeting, Katie. I'm sorry to interrupt because I want to be very brief. It was in the previous meeting. It has never been brought forward to this meeting. And it would not involve a lot of the costs that you all have discussed tonight. But as I said, it wasn't my place to bring it forward. I just want everyone to know there is another possibility that hasn't even been explored.
Well,
As-
so Pauline, it's not a possibility. It wasn't brought up because the expansion went from 1,700 square feet here to about 2,800 square feet with no parking. So we would have added on to this building, but with no additional parking. And so it just wasn't a viable proposal, and we're limited here by the grade and all those things. So it was discussed by the last working group, but was never brought in because it was so far away from the scope of what we were talking about here. So I just wanted
All right,
to.
we'll have a discussion about this. That proposal could easily have been brought forward to this new committee, which was reformed because of problems with the last committee, and it was not. And I'll leave it at that, and we'll see where this all goes. So the other things I want to say are the 21E investigation is strictly important. Jim, you'll remember when the fire station was being built, it added about $3 million to the cost of that construction. I think it was 1993. So we need to do an exploration of the Bishop Road site to be sure there's no contamination, because as the architect pointed out, Devons may impact it. Same with turtles and blue spotted salamanders. If Jim, you remember Loon Hill. I don't know if Dave Seabour, if you lived here back then. And as far as clerk of the works and building commissioner, we have a building commissioner on staff. Why would we pay another building commissioner, an independent consultant? Clerk of the works, I understand this should be a town person, and I would immediately recommend Ken Dixon, but I'm sure he might have other conflicts. But why would we need to hire, and these are not questions I'm asking answers. Why would we need to hire a building commissioner at the tune of several $100,000 when we have one on the payroll? And last comment I'll say right now, Ken, do not give up on your argument about those cost estimates. You are absolutely correct. If the architect can't provide you the information you want, we want, you know the result, you know what should be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin. Any public comment for those in person?
I have a comment, but I don't think right now is the time to do it.
I think this is a great time.
Well, if you want to get it on the record, now's the time to do it.
Because I know what you're gonna say. So go ahead and say it.
I do not care for the roof, the building, the outside. I think it's a little extravagant. We don't need the town mahal in the town of Ayer. And I think all the roof and all the exits and the roofs that are on angle, that too many angles for the roof. We don't need all of that. And then the things in the front of it, we can still have a nice looking roof and go down on the cost. We don't need the diagram, the three things that are on the front to save money on the building.
I can comment on that if you want, John. So,
I'm
Haven't
not
taken-
saying anything.
having taken a tour of the Wilbraham building, the one part of the building that surprised me the most, and would surprise anyone who saw it, because I've seen a lot of mechanical rooms, rooftop mechanical rooms and rooftop equipment, was walking up to the third floor and seeing the entire mechanical, electrical, fire alarm, sprinkler, the whole works built on the third floor. Concealing it completely from being rooftop equipment outside the building, all over the place. and really a fantastic, nice installation. And that helped me believe that this architect had the right idea. So even though you see those roof lines, they're actually accommodating the equipment area in the building, which serves to carry equipment that's as big as this room up on the third floor. And that serves the air conditioning systems, the heating systems, all kinds of water systems, purification, you name it. And that is why I contend that that building looks okay, because we actually are getting something underneath that roof line, rather than just a roof line. To me, it's more than a roof line. It's an equipment third floor that's being used very efficiently. So you don't see anything outside the building on the grounds, which you'd have.
Or on
to
the
see.
roof.
Or on the roof. It's all hidden. So there's more to it than just the look of the building. In my estimation.
It's probably worth, I know it's difficult for people to go see different centers. I always recommend that when you're concerned about something, go see and see what you think, and then come back and say, you know, I like it, or I still have my same.
I went to North Andover.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and I liked inside very much. The outside, the architect of the outside of the building is extreme to me.
Okay.
In what
That's
way?
my personal opinion.
In what way?
The design with the
The dormers.
angles and the dormers and everything that's there.
That's
It
what
makes
I
sense.
call it.
I mean, you've got all the angles of the roof for water to leak. You know, I mean.
Makes it to a box.
Yeah.
It's
not hard to do a box.
Have any of that, it's gonna look like Walmart, it's gonna look like a big
Yeah.
box.
But it's
you know,
not, because you've got the double, the front of it double, where it's in and out. I'm just talking about the things on the front that cost a lot of money in the roof.
It does.
Sure.
The other thing is too, I was on the Pleasant Street committee for a long time. And one thing that we have had a problem with was leaks. Leak. Right from the very beginning. And now there's a lot of breaking up with dormers and so forth here. And I think that, okay.
It's the.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Between you two, it's, you know,
So, I mean, I think the following point, I went into Barbara's point and Ken's point regarding the cost estimate. And I'm sure you know this, when we go before the town and we're talking to our neighbors on the streets and we're on the floor of town meeting, we are going to have to explain to them why this number is as it is. And in order to do that in good faith and have a fuller understanding of why these costs are as they are, then the level of detail that Ken was talking about is something that we're gonna need so that we can kind of explain, these are the costs and this is why.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point, and I don't dispute it at all. And I would be happy to show you how it breaks down. But I can tell you right now, the last 15 to 20 projects, they all were approved on this.
I'm sorry,
The last 15 to 20 projects, they're all approved.
All the
this
HVAC.
draft.
It has to be-
On this draft.
But I. We get a.
They're all done that way. It doesn't mean that you should not have it. Let me see what I have in my system.
Exactly.
I will give you, first of all, the Wilbraham breakdown, so you know what we're talking about between this and what we really do in the final design.
Well, the thing, just if you
This
just.
is not a private development, this is a public bid.
I understand. Why make it harder? So there's a, if
They
you
make
look at
it
the
hard.
very first line. Just, you know, just the fact that we can have the site work and the building together, I don't have it in front of me right now.
Yeah.
You should at least break the building and the site work apart. If you don't do anything else, do that.
I'll tell you what, I'll tell you exactly how it broke out. I'll tell you exactly how it broke out by Wilbraham. And I'll take the percentage and I'll adjust it to this. That's all it does. It doesn't change the number. Numbers are all the same.
No, it doesn't change.
It doesn't change. the
Right,
number,
but
just
it-
to figure out where you can pick and choose, but you can't figure out which to pick and choose, because we don't have the mechanics.
So.
All the engineering side of it.
In terms of our next, again, I didn't talk very in terms of our next meeting, when do we want to meet again? There's obviously some questions for the various, the town manager's office, town council, you know, the community development, Jim's gonna reach out, Dan's got a couple of. Dan V has got a couple of, you know, tasks as follow-ups as well, so, are we thinking we might need a little bit more time than the 2 weeks between the meeting to accomplish? That, or no, and says no.
I would say no.
I'm thinking.
I would say no.
Keep
You
going.
need to keep going as fast as possible. We're
Okay.
running out of time.
Yeah.
So-
Way out.
Should we?
So 2 weeks from today would be September 11th. Does that work?
When's town meeting?
Town meeting is October 24th, but,
Yes. 2
I-
weeks, at minimum.
Yeah,
But
but
it
the
may be-
warrant's gonna open soon.
Yeah.
It is
the warrant's
open.
already open. I'm trying to remember the date. I'm not sure we're gonna make it.
They said they would do a special. town
Yeah, I
meeting.
think,
We didn't make. that.
and I'll put that on my list of things to talk with the town manager about.
Might be better off at a special town meeting, by the way. You'll get a stronger advocate. Yeah.
So,
And it also, to that point, I
if we
think
wanna
that,
have time to, I'm sorry, to reach out, yeah.
yeah, it also affords us more opportunity to properly inform. That is,
Yes.
I think we are better off properly informing the public prior to the town meeting so that on the floor at town meeting,
Yes.
people don't feel like they've been rushed into such a significant decision.
Or not even knowing what it was that's coming in front of them. And I mentioned that very early on, that the most important thing is to communicate with the stakeholders, which is town citizens as well as.
But when you, to answer your question, Dennis, I think the bottom line, people are gonna wanna know what's gonna cost them. You're gonna get that percentage, gonna say, what's it gonna cost me? What's my additional cost every year or whatever?
We need to-
Yeah.
They're gonna ask that.
So
Yeah.
you were gonna be meeting with the treasurer or whoever who was gonna take the
Yes,
figures?
so I gave her the first one, not today's revision. I gave her the first one. She had a whole set of questions back for me about, you know, when the project will start, 6 months, a year, 2 years. That affects her estimate as far as how much it will cost the average taxpayer. She had questions about the estimated cash flow for the project, when the funds will be needed and how much at each stage. And then how long.
Bye, John.
Bye, John, thank you.
But, safe.
I try my best. I'm not shaking your hand.
Yeah, so I think some of those things we have answers
Breaks my
to,
hand every time.
and some of them, I need to further talk to the town manager's office to get a sense of those,
Yeah, because we're gonna need, because I
Right.
said to somebody, how much do you think the town will support? She goes, well, how much is it on the taxes?
and
You
I,
know, they don't, because they don't want to hear it's 10 million or it's 15 million. They want to know how much is it gonna raise the
and 'cause I
tax.
think that makes it personal, and so I think we need a little bit more information. And that was information that I couldn't answer for her email, so, I think we need to have I need to have sit down and have a discussion with her about exactly what her questions are and how to get to those answers, so. Yeah, so yeah, because I do think that that's the thing that will help people decide personally, how much will it cost me.
Right.
Agreed. So, all right, so next meeting, September 11th. At 6 p.m. And here, sounds good, working so far, all right. Wonderful, I'm gonna listen to adjourn.
Okay, we'll adjourn.
Oh, no. We have to decide who's gonna do the minutes for next time.
Oh.
I'm on late, yeah.
Yeah, minutes for today. So Dennis has already done them, I've already done them, Carolyn's already done them. Anybody else Anybody else want to volunteer to do the minutes from tonight's meeting, because we can do it off the recording?
Okay.
All right, I'll do it.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
If you want them done in about a year, I can do them.
Okay, so September 11th.
That would
6
be okay
p.m.
with me, but the rest of the town might object.
There was a motion to adjourn, was it seconded?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Um,
So
All
September.
right, adjourned
Not
at
down into that,
8:42.